Chapter 1391. It was as if doomsday had arrived. The shocking scene could be said to have turned the world upside down. The strong and piercingly cold airflow was like a storm that swept across the land, attacking the mountains, rivers, and earth. Dust and smoke raged, sand and stones flew. Chu Hin and Yi Yao's expressions changed abruptly as they looked at the chaotic scene in front of them in shock. Buzz, buzz! The dark blue beam of light pierced through the sky, as if it wanted to pierce through the void. The energy ball that exploded was like the eruption of the doomsday star. The steep mountain range instantly disintegrated in a shock wave. Big brother Chu Hin? Yao wanted to say something, but stopped. Chu Hin narrowed his eyes, clenched his fists, and replied solemnly, "Be careful." When a residual power in front of them calmed down a little, the people hiding in other places started to move again. Chu Hin and Yi Yao also continued to move forward with caution. The ancient and desolate aura that rushed toward them had a kind of indescribable mystery. The originally undulating mountain ridge had been shaken into a flat land, and the messy gravel and new soil were all exposed to the air. One after another, silhouettes rushed over from all directions like lightning. "What's that?" Yi Yao's expression changed again. Chu Hin also frowned slightly. In the ground in front of them, there was an incomparably huge sinkhole. The sinkhole was more than 1,000 feet in diameter, and the inside seemed bottomless. The surging dark blue beam of light came from the sinkhole, and it was incomparably shocking. As Chu Hin and Yi Yao approached it, the sinkhole was still expanding in all directions at a speed visible to the naked eye. The majestic beam of light that shot into the sky gradually weakened and dissipated. The ground that was collapsing and collapsing constantly split open one after another. It was like an ancient and mysterious glyph array, displaying an awe-inspiring atmosphere. The deep chanting that reverberated between heaven and earth was like an ancient war song. More and more people gathered here and surged towards the sinkhole. When the Chu Hin duo arrived at the edge of the sinkhole, their faces were filled with deep astonishment. Buzz, the obscure spatial rhythm, seemed to originate from the entrance to another plane. Under the dark blue light-pattern cyclone, the first thing that came into view was an incomparably huge stone statue. It was a human-shaped stone statue with blurry facial features and shape. It exuded an ancient majestic aura like an ancient god. On the left and right sides of the stone statue, a row of bold and fierce words were engraved. Creation Palm, Chaotic Star River, Limitless Sword, Murdering the World. Every stroke was so sharp that it made people's hearts tremble. Even though the stone statue was situated in the middle of the sinkhole, it gave off the feeling that it was above the 9 heavens. It was insurmountable and inviolable. In addition to the stone statue, there were countless skeletons scattered in the vast, abyss-like sinkhole. The skeletons were of different shapes. There were humans, demon beasts, and there were also the skeletons of giants that were several times larger than humans. The skeletons of various ancient creatures were scattered all over the bottom of the abyss. Coupled with the scattered broken swords and halberds, it was like an ancient battlefield from ancient times. Witnessing everything in front of them, everyone at the edge of the sinkhole could not help but think of the tragic scene of the battle in the Chaos Devil Domain. Is this the tomb of the creation great emperor? His prestige really lingers for a long time. A palm, chaotic star river, a sword to kill the world, this kind of heroic momentum is really earth-shattering. If I can obtain the supreme inheritance of the creation great emperor today, my life will not be in vain. The creation great emperor was an almighty figure from 10,000 years ago. Do you think a motley crew like you are worthy of coveting his inheritance? What a joke. The speaker did not mean anything, but the listener did. When he heard the words creation great emperor, Chu Hin's heartstrings trembled slightly. He looked at Yi Yao, who was next to him, and the latter's face was also filled with astonishment. This is the tomb of a great emperor? Although it was the first time Chu Hin heard the name Creation Great Emperor, He could feel the extraordinary nature of the great emperor from the respectful and cautious expressions of the people around him, especially the huge stone statue. It made people feel the majesty of great Emperor Zhao. Let's go down and have a look. The tomb of the creation great emperor is full of traps and secret realms. If we can obtain one or two, we will definitely benefit for the rest of our lives. Whether we can pry into the great emperor's divine power or not will depend on our luck. Time is not with us. Let's go. Without much hesitation, all the geniuses and experts that were gathered here leaped down successively and flashed towards the abyss. Among the messy crowd, there was no lack of experts with powerful auras hiding. Big Brother Chu Hen, let's go and join the fun, Yao said in a low voice. The opening of an emperor's residence was a rare opportunity that only appeared once in 1,000 years. Maybe there would be opportunities. Naturally, Chu Hen would not refuse such an opportunity. Okay, Chu Hen nodded in agreement. Immediately, the two of them and the yin-yang beast, Noni, flashed into the pit that looked like a gap in the ground. The moment they entered the pit, an invisible pressure immediately shrouded them. Looking at the great emperor's stone statue in front of them, they felt as if they were looking at a statue of a god. There were many large and small caves at the bottom of the abyss, extending in all directions. Everyone was like a colony of ants rushing to an anthole. When they reached the bottom of the giant pit that was thousands of meters deep, the many strange skeletons were close at hand. There were rusty cold spears and broken halberds that pinned a skeleton that looked like a human but not a beast to the stone wall, or a dozen arrows that pierced through the body of a giant skeleton. There were also pieces of broken bones scattered everywhere. Even after tens of thousands of years, the color of the soil here was still a deep dark red. Everyone felt as if they were stepping on a river of blood that had dried up. My God, any random weapon here has reached the level of a divine artifact. Unfortunately, most of them are damaged. Someone said regretfully. Yes, there are many skeletons that haven't decayed at all. It shows how powerful they were when they were alive. Yes, some of the skeletons of the demonic beasts even have a remnant soul left. It's really terrifying. It's hard to imagine that such powerful existences were all buried here. Broken divine artifacts, undecayed skeletons, and the remains of the remnant souls could be seen everywhere. Everything told the story of the turbulent times in the Chaos Devil world. After tens of thousands of years, the heavenly tomb in the land of creation opened, showing the world a cruel corner of that chaotic era. But where is the entrance to great Emperor Fortune's tomb? Soon, everyone's hearts began to fill with doubts. Most people were focused on the numerous caves at the bottom of the abyss, but in fact, those caves had long been searched. Just as everyone was feeling puzzled, someone accidentally triggered a seal somewhere, and something unexpected happened. Buzz, a shocking tremor spread rapidly, and countless light vine tassels appeared on the surface of the vast abyss. The beautiful and dazzling light patterns were like a strange net. They flickered all the way and rapidly extended like lightning, all of them surging towards that stone statue. In an instant, everyone's gazes were focused on the stone statue. The majestic stone statue suddenly shone brightly, and tens of thousands of eye-catching light vine patterns appeared on its body. Crack! The rocks on the surface of the stone statue cracked like eggshells and smashed down from the sky. Zong! Accompanied by a strong spatial tremor, the stone statue's eyes lit up and glowed with the light of the sun. What's going on? The stone statue came to life. Seeing this scene, everyone's hearts surged with unease. Big Brother Chu Hen? Yao frowned slightly, and she was on guard. Chu Hen's eyes narrowed, and he said in a low voice, "Let's wait and see." Dazzling golden light bloomed from the stone statue's eyes, and two beams of light sprinkled down and shot into the void in front of the stone statue. Under everyone's shocked gazes, the two beams of light overlapped. Dense, ancient talisman markings lit up along with an expanse of mysterious markings that coiled around it, and then the talisman markings revolved and fused together. After that, A passageway that was like a wheel of light suddenly appeared within everyone's field of vision. The aurora shone, and waves of air stacked. Everyone's pupils shrank to the size of a needle, and their faces were filled with disbelief. Chapter 1392. Is that the entrance to the secret realm? In the huge abyss, everyone felt like they were in an ant colony. When they saw the passage that resembled a wheel of light hovering in front of the stone statue, a commotion broke out. Buzz, a strange soft light shot out from the stone statue's eyes and intersected in the void. Rings of light rotated and revolved around each other, giving off the feeling that it was a star-ring whirlpool in the vast universe. Inside the whirlpool, there was an irregular passage that looked like a door that had been forcefully torn open. Was it the secret realm entrance to the Fortune Emperor's tomb? Everyone was shocked and puzzled. While their eyes were burning with restlessness, they were also filled with caution. However, no one dared to be the first to test it out. After all, the master of this place was the Fortune Emperor who had shocked the world 10,000 years ago. No one dared to act rashly. Just as everyone was hesitating, a swift and fierce figure swept across the sky, setting off a powerful aura, and took the lead in flying towards the giant stone statue. Everyone's heart skipped a beat. It's Deng Chai, the 38th genius on the fortune list. As expected of an expert on the list, the talented are truly bold. Under the bewildered gazes of the crowd, the swift and fierce young figure directly charged into the whirlpool of light like an eagle gliding through a mountain stream. Following that, the whirlpool of light revolved around him like a shining star ring. Accompanied by a strange ripple, the figure immediately disappeared into the whirlpool of light. He went in. Wow! Everyone was surprised, and their eyes were burning with excitement. It must be the entrance to the secret realm. Let's go! In an instant, the huge abyss was filled with noise like a raging tsunami. With the genius on the fortune list, Deng Chai, taking the lead, the others no longer hesitated. One by one, they soared into the sky like a school of fish that had found an opening after being trapped in a net. They swarmed toward the whirlpool of light in front of the stone statue. The grandiose scene was especially spectacular. One after another, the hasty figures that looked like auroras leaped into the nebula vortex one after another. In addition to Deng Chai, several other genius experts on the fortune list also appeared in the crowd. That's Li Su. Even he is here. And Du Chun, he's there too. As expected of the Fortune Emperor's tomb, it actually attracted so many people on the fortune list. Sensing the powerful auras hidden in the crowd, Chu Hen's eyes quietly surged with vigilance. The opening of the Fortune Emperor's secret realm was bound to be earth-shattering and would attract all sorts of experts. Up until now, he had never seen so many geniuses on the fortune list appearing at the same place. With so many people, there are bound to be many. To the situation, Big Brother Chu Hen? Yi Yao frowned slightly. There seemed to be worry in her eyes, but she hesitated to speak. Chu Hen turned his head to look at him, a profound intent surging within his eyes. He knew what Yi Yao was worried about. Currently, Chu Hen had slaughtered many ranker-ranked geniuses in the Sacred War's recruitment, making enemies with many forces. Once they encountered an enemy, the two of them might not be able to deal with it calmly. In such a chaotic situation, there were too many uncertainties. After hesitating for a while, he said, "Let's go take a look. If anything happens, we'll leave immediately." Yi Yao nodded. After all, it was the Emperor's secret realm that looked down on the world 10,000 years ago. It would be a pity if they left just like that. Of course, chaos had its advantages. The two went with the flow and hid in the crowd, so they would not be too conspicuous. The two of them immediately leaped up with the yin-yang beast Noni, and they flashed towards the front of the stone statue amidst the crowd that was dense like a swarm of locusts. The closer they got to the light whirlpool, the stronger the energy fluctuation. That whirlpool of light was like a spatial tunnel that had been torn out of thin air. Although people kept pouring in, the light whirlpool was still very stable, and there were no signs of it collapsing. "Be careful." When they got close, Chu Hen said to Yi Yao in a deep voice. The latter nodded slightly. Okay. Following that, both of their eyes reflected the strange, gentle light. Swoosh! The two of them flashed into it. In the next moment, Chu Hen seemed to be sucked into a light tunnel. The surrounding space was distorted violently, and they could even vaguely see the space turbulence. So, in less than 2 seconds, the two of them stopped. As the light in front of them disappeared, a brand new space appeared in front of them. This is... Chu Hen and Yi Yao looked at each other and saw the surprise in each other's eyes. The people around them were also surprised. An illusion? I don't know, but it feels real. In front of everyone was a mysterious world that seemed to be shrouded in dusk. Cliffs, mountain streams, valleys, they were all soaked in a layer of faint gray fog. In the sky, there was a celestial body that was glowing with a soft light. It was unknown whether it was the sun or the moon. In the distant sky, there was an aurora nebula. Under the aurora, the outline of the mountains and peaks had an indescribable illusion. Day, night, or morning? It was hard to tell. Let's go and look around. Filled with anticipation and confusion, the people who entered this place quickly explored the depths of this mysterious world. Chu Hen and Yi Yao also began to move. The deep and serene mountain valleys were like ancient beasts that had opened their mouths wide, waiting for their prey to take the bait. Everyone rushed toward the Aurora Nebula in front of them. That area seemed close, but in fact, it was thousands of miles away. It was as if they could never cross it. This is also an ancient battlefield. Someone exclaimed in surprise. In the dusk of the mountain, the remnants of the ancient war could be vaguely seen in the distance. Fallen banners, broken swords and halberds, and countless skeletons and corpses of fiend gods that could be seen all over the ground. It was a desolate and sorrowful song, and a lonely soul had passed away. Anyone would be able to sense an ancient and majestic aura that came from a long distance. Many people had directly descended to the ancient battlefield to search for the inheritance that was left behind. Big Brother Chu Hen, let's go there. Yi Yao suddenly said. Chu Hen's gaze shifted to the side and followed the direction that the other person was pointing at. Under the dim light, the ancient jade palaces and palaces appeared majestic and mysterious. At the peak of the mountain, the platform was vast, and the stone pillars stood tall, like a tower that stood in the distance. Then, the two arrived at the ancient building. Chu Hen landed on a majestic platform in a flash. His gaze scanned the surrounding environment. Everything seemed quite normal, but there was a kind of indescribable mystery. Suddenly, a wisp of obscure energy fluctuation was captured by Chu Hen. That is, Chu Hen lifted his eyelids, and he was surprised to find a trace of golden light swaying behind a stone pillar on the left side of the platform. He moved to take a look, and the golden light was actually emitted by a ball of light. It was a ball of light that was only 2 to 3 meters wide, completely incomparable to the one in front of the stone statue outside. Beams of ring-shaped light intertwined and rotated like a soft and nimble flame. What is this? At the same time, Yi Yao also discovered its existence. She walked over curiously and then subconsciously reached out to touch the ball of light. Chu Hen's expression changed, and he hurriedly shouted. Don't, however, before he could stop her, Yi Yao's finger had already touched a wisp of light on the periphery of the ball of light. Whoosh! A burst of light flashed, and Yi Yao immediately left an afterimage on the spot and instantly disappeared. Not good. Chu Hen was shocked. Without saying anything, he hurriedly flashed over, and when he touched the ball of light, thousands of strands of light followed and shrouded him. Chu Hen suddenly felt a light flash in front of him, and the next second, he immediately appeared in another place. Big Brother Chu Hen, this seems to be a secret room. Yi Yao's voice followed. Seeing that she was safe and sound, Chu Hen slightly breathed a sigh of relief. Then, he looked around, and just as she said, the two of them accidentally entered a secret room. The secret room was about 100 meters long and wide, and there were many miscellaneous items scattered inside. It was not difficult to guess that this place had already been searched. Not far behind Chu Hen was a ball of golden light, and it was obvious that this ball of light connected this place to the passage outside. It seems that there are many small secret realms here. Yao did not pay much attention to the situation here, and looked left and right like a curious cat. Chu Hen smiled slightly helplessly, and just as he was about to remind her that they were not the first people to come here, Yi Yao's surprised voice sounded again. "Big brother Chu Hen, look what I found, Chu Hen was startled, and then Yi Yao trotted back, holding a fist-sized brown box in her hand. It was impossible to tell what material the box was made of, and there were many complicated patterns on it. Yi Yao brushed the dust off, and then, under Chu Hen's gaze, she carefully opened the box. Accompanied by a soft halo, a fluorescent round pill slowly appeared in front of the two of them. "This is an elixir?" Chu Hen's eyes lit up, and he saw that the round pill was tempered with golden patterns, and a thin light film surrounded it. Although it blocked the fragrance of the elixir, it could not hide the obscure energy rhythm. "It's actually a golden divine elixir." Chu Hen's lips moved slightly, and his eyes were moved. As a pattern master, Chu Hen seemed to know a thing or two about this thing. On the contrary, Yi Yao looked confused. "What is a golden divine elixir? Is it very high grade?" Chu Hen shook his head with a smile, and then breathed a sigh of relief. "It's a very powerful sacred grade elixir. How does it compare to the supreme sacred explosive blood pill? It's at least 3 grades higher than the supreme sacred explosive blood pill." Chu Hen answered confidently. "Wow." Yi Yao's big eyes sparkled as if she had seen stars. "Am I so lucky? I picked up such a good treasure as soon as I came in." "Yes." Chu Hen was also surprised. He thought that this secret chamber had been swept clean by the people before him, but he didn't expect to miss out on such a high-grade elixir. While he felt lucky, he couldn't help but feel apprehensive about this Fortune Emperor's tomb, a place where even sacred grade elixirs could be casually thrown around. What kind of extraordinary place was this? "Big brother Chu Hen, the golden divine pill is for you." Yi Yao handed the box to Chu Hen. The latter smiled warmly and pushed the box back. "Keep it. It will be very useful to you." "I don't need it." "Got it." Yi Yao stuck out her tongue mischievously. "I'll look again to see if there's a second one." Immediately, Yi Yao went to look around. Chu Hen was slightly speechless. How could there be such good luck? To be able to find one was already very good. If there was a second one, it could only mean that the people before them were blind. Just as Chu Hen thought, one golden divine pill was already extra luck. Yi Yao didn't find anything after that. "Noah, of course not." Chu Hen rubbed the other's head. "Go out." "Oh." Yi Yao was a little depressed. Immediately, the two of them touched the golden whirlpool behind them. Thousands of rays of light surrounded them. Shio. The space twisted, and in the next instant, the two of them returned to the Tao platform. "It's really magical." Yi Yao sighed sincerely. Chu Hen also nodded in agreement. This was indeed a mysterious place that was difficult to reach from the outside world. "Hey, where's Noni?" Yi Yao asked. Chu Hen also remembered that the yin-yang beast that came with them seemed to have disappeared. The two of them looked around, searching for the black and white kitten's figure. However, at this time, an incomparably shrill scream suddenly came from the other side of the square. Chapter 1393. An incomparably shrill scream suddenly rang out, directly startling Chu Hen and Yi Yao. The two looked at each other, then subconsciously turned around and flew in the direction of the sound. From afar, they saw more than 20 to 30 people gathered at the other end of the ancient platform square. The scene was rather chaotic, mixed with a lot of noise. "What's going on? Don't go up. Everyone back off. Oh my God, isn't that Deng Chai? What's wrong with him?" At the same time, Chu Hen and Yi Yao, who had just arrived, were shocked to see a miserable figure stumbling in front of the crowd. When they looked carefully, the person's right arm was actually wrapped in a dark blue flame. The blue flame was like a flame, but it did not have the slightest temperature. That person was none other than Deng Chai, the genius on the honor list who was the first to enter this place. What was even more shocking was that Deng Chai's arm was withering at a speed visible to the naked eye. His skin and flesh rapidly turned black and shriveled, as if he had been infected by the weak water poison. It was extremely terrifying. Damn it. Hurry up and save senior brother Dang Chai. How can we save him? Even he is like this, there's nothing we can do. What's wrong with him? I don't know. There was a strange blue mist just now. Senior brother Dang Chai thought it was the teleportation formation at the entrance of the secret realm, but who knew it would become like this? Looking at Dang Chai, who was in extreme pain, everyone was anxious, but there was nothing they could do. In just 2 blinks of an eye, his arm had completely turned black. Whoosh! Suddenly, a sword light that shook the space suddenly tore through the air. Everyone's pupils shrank slightly, and before they could understand what had happened, a string of bright red flowers danced in the air. This! A sharp sound rang out, and Deng Chai's right arm was instantly separated from his shoulder and directly flew out. Bastard! Who did this? Deng Chai's companions were shocked and angry. As soon as the voice fell, a cold and solemn aura swept in all directions. Under the dim light, a tall figure in a gray robe stood straight like a spear not far away. In his hand was a long sword that glowed with light. Clearly, that sword had come from this person. Feeling the formidable aura emitted by this person, traces of terror surged out from the hearts of everyone present. When they saw the other party's face clearly, everyone's eyes were filled with unconcealable shock and awe. Ji Tao? What? Ji Tao, ranked 13th on the wind cloud list? Everyone's body and mind trembled, especially those who were furious. Their faces turned deathly pale as they stared at the other party's grave and stern face. A chill rose from the soles of their feet to their spines. You. The voice of the person who was cursing just now was trembling. He swallowed hard and pretended to be calm. Even if it's you can't take advantage of others. Fourth bro, don't be rude. At this moment, Deng Chai's weak voice sounded from behind them. Everyone was startled and turned to look at each other. Deng Chai covered her bleeding wound with one hand while her pale face was covered in beads of sweat. She raised her head to look at Ji Tao and said, Thank you for saving me. Senior brother Ji. Save him? Everyone in the room was a little confused. Ji Tao had chopped off his arm. Instead, he said thank you. Look over there. Someone exclaimed. What? Everyone's eyes swept to the place where Deng Chai's broken arm fell. The arm, which was still flesh and blood a few seconds ago, had evaporated into a pile of fine ashes. Hiss! Everyone could not help but gasp and felt their scalps go numb. Oh my God! What the hell is going on? What is that? How could it be so terrifying? Seeing this, the few people around Deng Chai hurriedly apologized to Ji Tao. If the other party did not use that sword, Deng Chai would not have just lost an arm. She would have died on the spot. However, Ji Tao still had a cold expression. He did not have much emotional fluctuations in the crowd's offense and apology. Di Yinjing Qi, where did you find it? Ji Tao's throat moved slightly as he said faintly. What? Di Yinjing Qi. Wow. In an instant, there was an uproar. Everyone's eyes were filled with shock and agitation. Even Deng Chai was shocked and murmured in disbelief. What I touched just now was Di Yinjing Qi. Some people were stunned, some were moved, and some were puzzled. Di Yinjing Qi? What is that? Is it related to the inheritance of great Emperor Zhao Hua? You don't even know about Di Yinjing Qi. You are really ignorant. It is said that Di Yinjing Qi is an ancient Genesis Qi used by great Emperor Zhao Hua to refine the soul and refine the body. Yes, this Genesis Qi is the Empyrean origin power created by great Emperor Zhao Hua with supreme power. Even a small ball of it contains extremely amazing power. If it can be channeled into the body and used to refine the body and refine the bones, even a naturally mediocre person can shed his mortal bones and become a genius of the generation. Of course, Di Yinjing Qi is too overbearing. Let alone ordinary people. Even some extraordinary geniuses will find it difficult to control it. A little carelessness will cause the Empyrean origin Qi to backfire. At this point, Everyone couldn't help sweeping a glance at Deng Chai. Looking at her wretched appearance, he became even more fearful and respectful of the rumored Di Yanjing's chi of misfortune. Deng Chai was a genius ranked 38th on the honor list, but she had almost died here. It was truly terrifying. Of course, Deng Chai was too careless to fall into such a big trap. If he knew that it was Di Yanjing chi, he would naturally be more vigilant. Deng Chai pursed her dry lips and pointed in a direction to the north of the platform. Behind a pavilion over there, there's a ball of Di Yanjing chi condensed. After listening to the other party's words, Jitao coldly turned around and left the place, quickly blending into the dusky twilight. He didn't say much, and he was as cold and stern as a mountain. He was a top expert ranked 13th on the wind and cloud list. He gave off the feeling of a lonely swordsman, and everyone could only look at his back. Immediately, the onlookers quickly dispersed. There was no doubt that Deng Chai's encounter made everyone more respectful of great Emperor Zhao Hua's tomb. Even a genius ranked on the list might not be able to withstand a single blow in such a place. This place is really scary, Yi Yao said with a little worry. Chu Hen nodded slightly, but he couldn't help but look in the direction that Deng Chai pointed just now. Di Yanjing Qi, what exactly was that? Whoosh! Just after the crowd dispersed, a petite black shadow suddenly flew over from afar. Noni! Yi Yao's eyes lit up, and she hurriedly went to meet it. Where did you go? Yi Yao squatted down and asked while holding the black and white kitten in her arms. Woo! The yin-yang beast whispered, then opened its mouth and spat out something. What is this? Yi Yao and Chu Hen were taken aback, and upon closer inspection, they saw that it was a plant less than the size of a palm. This plant only had 2 leaves, and what was even more strange was that one of the leaves was swaying softly with a white light, while the other was a deep dark color. Yi Yao picked it up, and her eyes glowed brightly. Such pure yin and yang energy. Big brother Chu Hen, look! Chu Hen received the plant and inwardly nodded his head. If he carefully observed it, there were strands of yin and yang vortexes circulating between the 2 leaves, forming an illusory ring-shaped chi pattern on the outside. The yin and yang energy that could be sensed was pure and did not contain the slightest bit of impurities. Where did you find it? Yi Yao rubbed Noni's furry little head and asked. Woo! Noni raised its head, then turned around, leaped with its 4 claws, and dashed out on a black and white flame. The 2 of them immediately followed, passing through the ancient Dao platform and across the vast plaza. Under Noni's guidance, the 2 of them arrived at a mountain stream. Looking down from above, the mountain stream was not particularly wide, but it was very steep. There was a spring flowing at the bottom of the mountain stream, but compared to the clear spring outside, the flowers and trees here seemed to be covered with a thin layer of gray mist, giving the illusion that they were in a dream. Swoosh! Noni directly dove down, like a sharp arrow flashing to the bottom of the mountain stream. Yi Yao followed closely behind. Just as Chu Hen was about to follow, a cry of surprise came from Yi Yao's mouth. Wow! So many yin-yang grass. Yi Yao casually gave it a name. Chu Hen, who had steadied himself, raised his eyebrows. At a glance, on both sides of the spring stream, on the rock crevices of the mountain stream, there were many stalks of strange grass that were surrounded by black and white cyclones. Each blade of grass had 2 leaves. One was white, and the other was black. Incomparably pure and rich yin and yang energy floated in the mountain stream, giving people the feeling that they had walked to the boundary between dawn and dusk. I'm going to pull them all out. Yi Yao's eyes shone brightly. She ran forward and quickly plucked these strange yin and yang grasses. Meanwhile, Noni rushed into the grass, opened his mouth, and bit a stalk of grass. After chewing a few times, he directly swallowed it. After swallowing the yin and yang grass, Noni's body clearly had a strong rhythmic flow of energy. A circle of illusory light pattern spread and rotated around his body. Then, Noni directly transformed into a ferocious beast that was more than 10 meters long. Like a hungry Taotai, he gorged on these plants that contained yin and yang source energy. So greedy. Yi Yao scolded with a smile in her eyes. Big brother Chu Hen, wait for me there for a while. I'll leave after plucking these. Got it. There's no hurry. Chu Hen shook his head with a smile. How long would it take for him to pluck so many plants? However, he couldn't help feeling happy. These unknown plants were useful to both Yi Yao and Noni, especially when there were so many of them. One had to admit that great Emperor Zhao Hua's secret realm was truly a divine realm filled with countless treasures. Time ticked by, and soon, more than half an hour had passed. However, the amount of yin and yang grass that Yao had plucked was less than 1/10 of the entire area. On the other hand, Noni had swallowed a lot of them in one go. Chu Hen could clearly feel an unusually large amount of energy gathering inside Noni's body. The black and white vortex revolving around Noni's body was like a celestial ring, becoming more and more solid. Waiting on the side, Chu Hen couldn't help feeling a little bored. Just as he was about to pluck the yin and yang grass together with Yi Yao, Chu Hen caught a glimpse of a faint blue light from a crack not far behind him. Huh? Chu Hen was startled. He turned his body and walked towards that direction. Looking at it from a close distance, the inside of the rock wall seemed to have split open. Strands of blue light patterns flowed out from it, as if it was a dense mist. With a hint of vigilance, Chu Hen approached the rock wall. Through the crack, he saw a dark blue ring of light floating in the crack, surrounded by the blue light. The ring of light was like silk or mist, enchanting and dreamy, like a dancing songstress, exuding an indescribable sense of mystery. Chu Hen's pupils shrank, his fists clenched tightly, a look of bewilderment on his face. Chapter 1394, Di Yinjing Doom Qi. Looking at the enchanting and dreamy blue light source that was like silk and fog, Chu Hen's pupils shrank slightly, and his face was filled with shock. Is it Di Yinjing Doom Qi? Thinking of the encounter of Deng Chai, a genius on the ranking list, Chu Hen's eyes were filled with vigilance. He observed the light source in the crack of the rock wall. The light source was about the width of a plate, and it was surrounded by fog-like optical fibers. It was very strange. Chu Hen could clearly feel the obscure energy fluctuation contained in the light source. The rhythm caused the space to be uneasy, and it had an inexplicable, strange charm. Staring at the Di Yinjing Doom Qi, Chu Hen hesitated a little. He took 2 steps back, then turned around to look at Yi Yao and the yin-yang beast Noni in the mountain stream. The man and the beast were still busy picking the unknown plant that contained the pure power of yin and yang. Following that, Chu Hen once again turned his attention to the light source. It's only such a small part. It should be enough to control it. Immediately, Chu Hen carefully extended his palm toward the crack of the rock wall. When his fingertips touched the strands of light patterns, a strand of powerful energy was transmitted over. Immediately after, strand after strand of light patterns were like special flames burning in the air, following along Chu Hen's palm and wrapping around his arm. The corner of Chu Hen's eyes narrowed slightly, and there was some surprise between his brows. What a strong sense of oppression. Once the misty light patterns attached to his body, he immediately felt a heavy, crushing pressure, as if his arm was wrapped by the body of a python. However, apart from the oppression, Chu Hen did not feel any other discomfort. It seemed that the Di Yinjing Doom Qi that was attached to his body would not cause any other effects. Immediately, Chu Hen's heart skipped a beat. He clenched his 5 fingers gently, and a slight suction force was released from his palm. In the blink of an eye, the misty light patterns around his arm seemed to have found a breakthrough point and immediately surged in. In the next second, Chu Hen suddenly felt an extremely powerful and overbearing force invading his body. His palms and arms felt like they were on fire, as if the blood flowing in his arms had boiled in an instant. Chu Hen was secretly alarmed. The primary strength in his body surged rapidly. He did not hesitate to suppress this foreign invading force. With the previous example, in addition to the difference in cultivation, Chu Hen did not have the same situation as Deng Chai. The impact of Di Yinjing's qi was immediately suppressed. At the same time, thousands of strands of fiery energy were diluted and merged by Chu Hen's quintessential essence energy, and then integrated into the major meridians in his body. Following that, Chu Hen felt a warm current flowing through his body. There was an indescribable warmth in his bones and veins. Chu Hen was surprised and curious. Just as he was surprised by the magic of this Di Yinjing Dun Qi, a dazzling brilliance suddenly bloomed from the inside of the crack in the rock wall. Chu Hen's pupils shrank to the size of a needle tip. He saw that there was a golden whirlpool behind the dark blue light source. When the golden whirlpool sensed the fluctuation of quintessential essence from Chu Hen's body, it quickly expanded like a blooming nebula. Buzz! The golden whirlpool immediately shrouded him like a shining sun. Chu Hen only felt that the surrounding space was distorted, and then with a whoosh, Chu Hen directly turned into a ray of light and disappeared on the spot. Buzz! It was as if the stars had moved and the planes had changed. Soon, a brilliant brilliance flashed in front of Chu Hen's eyes, and then a shocking scene that he had never seen before filled his eyes. His eyes were wide open, and his expression changed dramatically. Chu Hen seemed to have broken into the collapsing doomsday. There was an incomparably thick, dark, blue, misty qi pattern floating between heaven and earth. The sky above his head was completely shrouded by the Di Yinjing Dun Qi, covering the sky like a sky curtain that isolated the void. Under the cover of the sky curtain, Chu Hen was standing on a stone pillar at the moment. Looking around, there were strange rocks and all kinds of steep and strange stone pillars either supporting the sky or connected to the rock wall. This place was like a cave, but this cave was particularly wide and huge. Looking from a distance, it could be said to extend in all directions. Then, when Chu Hen's gaze shifted to the bottom, his already shocked heart trembled again. What came into view was a dark river. A steady stream of dark blue mist rose from the river, dark and mysterious. It extended in all directions along the cave, giving people the feeling that it was a legendary weak water river that connected to the netherworld. Could this be the source of the Di Yinjing Dun Qi? Feeling the Di Yinjing Dun Qi floating in the air, which was thousands of times denser than what he had touched just now, Chu Hen's heartstrings were broken, and he was extremely nervous. There is no doubt that the Di Yinjing Dun Qi originated from this dark and mysterious underground river. Chu Hen took a deep breath and calmed himself down. Then, he turned around and planned to go back to find Yao first. But the next second, Chu Hen was stunned because there was no golden whirlpool behind him that connected to the outside world. There's no teleportation connection? What's going on? Chu Hen was confused. He was clearly dragged in by the teleportation whirlpool just now. Why was there only an entrance and no way out? Could it be a one-way teleportation array? After all, this was the ruins of the great emperor from 10,000 years ago. Many things could not be explained by today's concept. In the case of being unable to return, he could only wait for Yi Yao to teleport in herself. Immediately, Chu Hen carefully observed the surrounding situation while waiting for Yi Yao's arrival. Time passed minute by minute. In the blink of an eye, nearly an hour had passed. However, Yi Yao did not appear for a long time. Chu Hen could not help but feel a little anxious. Logically speaking, when he was dragged in just now, the movement was quite big, so Yi Yao should have noticed it. Even if she did not notice the situation over there because she was picking the inyan grass, she should have noticed it after disappearing for so long. After waiting for another half an hour, Chu Hen finally could not sit still anymore. He got up and looked forward. Then, he moved and flashed towards the depths of the cave. The strong sense of oppression brought by the Di Yinjing Dun Qi in the air came from all directions. Chu Hen felt like he was moving in a quagmire and was still somewhat affected. Fortunately, as long as he prevented the Di Yinjing Dun Qi from entering his body, it would not cause other effects, so it was relatively safe. Harboring cautiousness and vigilance, Chu Hen patrolled the huge cavern and investigated. The deeper he probed, the more amazed Chu Hen was. This was not just a large cave. It was like an ancient underground palace. Many magnificent rocks were intentionally or unintentionally built into bridges, stone platforms, and so on that traversed the two places. The internal area was unimaginably huge. Suddenly, a rock wall in front of him attracted Chu Hen's attention. With a thought, he immediately flashed in front of the stone wall. There was an ancient picture carved on the stone wall. There was a man in the picture. The man was sitting under a tree, holding a leaf with two fingers, looking forward, and it was unknown what he meant. Chu Hen stared at the stone, painting quietly. Suddenly, the man in the painting seemed to move. The eyes that were looking forward suddenly looked straight at Chu Hen. What was even more shocking was that the man waved his hand, and the leaf between his fingers flew over like an aurora. Leaf pinching finger force. A powerful voice sounded in his ears. Hum! Chu Hen's heart trembled, as if the leaf had hit his soul, causing a strong shock. It was as if he had been pierced by the leaf, making him feel even more frightened. When he looked back, the stone painting had returned to its original appearance, and the man on it was still in the same posture, motionless. Leaf pinching finger force? Chu Hen frowned slightly and muttered to himself, could this be a martial arts visualization diagram? I finally found the Fortune Emperor Palace. This Holy War's enlistment was not in vain. Just at this time, a voice came from the other side. It was Chu Hen's voice. Chu Hen was startled. Chapter 1395. Fortune Emperor Palace? Chu Hen's heart skipped a beat when he heard the voice coming from somewhere else. He shifted his gaze slightly, shifting his attention from the stone painting on the rock wall in front of him. Two people slowly walked out from a majestic stone beam that connected the north and south sides of the cave diagonally behind them. Both of them were young men with ordinary looks. They belonged to the category of passers-by that wouldn't attract much attention in a crowd. Rumor has it that the Fortune Emperor Palace's structure is unique, like an underground maze. It seems like it's true, one of them said. The other person nodded in amazement. That's right. As expected of the Fortune Emperor's cultivation holy land, it's filled with the cleansing calamity chi. We only absorb a little bit of the cleansing calamity chi to temper our bodies. It is said that the Fortune Emperor tempered his body and bones in the cleansing calamity river. My God, the Fortune Emperor could be said to be a god. Ordinary people like us would be melted into nothingness the moment we touch the cleansing calamity river. While the two people marveled at the structure of the cave, they looked at the dark-colored river flowing at the bottom of the cave in awe. The dark river that was constantly emitting a dark blue mist-like aura became increasingly strange and mysterious. The passageways that extended in all directions seemed to connect to the netherworld. It seems like the Fortune Emperor Palace has an inner palace and an outer palace. One of them said in a low voice. Another person affirmed as he subconsciously scanned the surroundings. I've also read about it in some ancient books. The Fortune Emperor Palace is not only the Fortune Emperor's cultivation holy land, but is also the place where this almighty master became an emperor. However, not many people have been to the inner palace, and it is said that it is completely sealed. Other than the Fortune Emperor, no one should know where the inner palace is. What a pity! But the outer palace contains many of the Fortune Emperor's secret arts. If we could learn one or two of them, it would be enough for a lifetime. That's true, huh? At that moment, the two of them discovered Chu Hen, who was in front of the stone wall. Following that, the two of them immediately shut their mouths and looked at each other. Then, as if they didn't see Chu Hen, they walked away by themselves. Looking at the two disappearing figures at the end of the stone bridge, Chu Hen raised his eyebrows slightly, and a glint flashed in his eyes. So, this is the cultivation ground of the Fortune Monarch. He didn't expect to be teleported here by accident. However, from the looks of it, most people were looking for this place, and many people had already entered. Chu Hen even had reason to suspect that someone had already entered the secret realm left behind by Great Emperor Zheohua. Immediately, Chu Hen raised his eyes and looked at the martial arts visualization diagram on the stone wall. The man above was pinching a leaf with his fingers. His gaze was calm and deep, giving off a piercingly cold aura, as if he was accumulating power before taking action. Leaf-pinching finger force. Chu Hen murmured softly. Then he shook his head slightly. Although this martial arts visualization diagram was peculiar, it did not have any particular attraction for Chu Hen. From a certain point of view, the leaf-pinching finger force and the North Star art somewhat overlapped. Chu Hen's figure flashed as he left the stone wall and headed towards the deeper parts of the Fortune Emperor Palace to search for something. The Fortune Emperor Palace was vast, and every corner exuded a mysterious aura. It was as if Chu Hen was shuttling through a giant underground labyrinth of ants. There were all kinds of strange rocks, buildings, and stone bridges, all of which were novel and astonishing. As he explored, Chu Hen saw many figures with strong auras. Most of the people who were able to make it this far were not weak. At the same time, Chu Hen also discovered many places where martial arts were hidden. There was a visualization diagram similar to the one before, a style of runes, and even a profound martial arts technique hidden in the statue. Wind chasing shadow. Buzz. Accompanied by a wave of piercingly cold air, Chu Hen slowly opened his eyes and withdrew his hand from a statue in the shape of a horse. The horse statue was about 30 meters tall, with its front hooves raised high, and a pair of blade-shaped wings grew from its back. What a profound movement technique, Chu Hen muttered to himself. I wonder how long it will take to learn this movement technique. The horse statue in front of him contained a movement technique called wind chasing shadow. As the saying went, it came like a shadow and left without a trace, and it could burst out with extreme speed in an instant. Compared to the previous martial arts techniques, Chu Hen was more interested in this movement technique. However, at this moment, an obscure energy fluctuation suddenly came from one of the cave entrances on the left. The corner of Chu Hen's eyes narrowed, and he could feel an even stronger emperor, Yinjing Misfortune Qi, surging in the cave. What's that? After a brief hesitation, Chu Hen looked at the horse statue in front of him, and then flashed toward the dark and mysterious cave. As soon as he entered, the Emperor Yinjing Misfortune Qi that was several times denser than other places rushed toward him. The invisible pressure generated by the cleansing misfortune Qi constantly squeezed the surface of his skin as if to invade his body through his pores. Chu Hen's complexion slightly changed. The true elemental power within his purple palace quickly revolved, and the vigorous true elemental power condensed into a thin layer of gauze-like defensive shield around his body. The Emperor, Yinjing Misfortune Qi, that enveloped him was completely blocked. With a lot of caution, Chu Hen quickly shuttled through the cave. The deeper he went, the stronger the pressure and resistance he endured. Soon, the end of the cave appeared in front of him. He subconsciously sped up. Swoosh! The moment he passed through the entrance, Chu Hen felt his eyes suddenly open up. It was as if a new world had opened up, and what appeared in front of him was a particularly vast Yuan region. In the Yuan region, there were many magnificent and domineering ancient stone statues standing on the rock walls. They were incomparably imposing and uncanny workmanship. The Nether River, emitting dark blue chi patterns, flowed below, and bubbles emerged from time to time, giving the impression that it was a dark-colored river of magma. Chu Hen's gaze quickly swept across the ancient and mysterious Yuan region before him. The various imposing and peculiar stone statues were breathtaking. Among them, the most eye-catching were the statues of a pair of giant hands and a giant sword. The giant hands stretched out from the rock walls, and a single finger was hundreds of feet long. The two giant hands were suspended with their palms facing each other, and their fingers were slightly spread apart. There was a distance of nearly 100 meters between them, as if they were looking down on the world and summoning all living things. The giant sword stood erect in the Yuan region. The sword was more than 1,000 feet long, and its lower section was directly submerged in the dark Emperor Yinjing Misfortune cleansing river. It could be said that it stood in the sky and connected to the Nether River, fully displaying the divine might of an overlord. Naturally, Chu Hen would not be the first to discover such a magnificent and peerless ancient god. There were already many young figures with extraordinary bearings on the many stone statues. Everyone was either standing or sitting, seemingly asleep or awake. Although no one seemed to pay attention to Chu Hen's arrival on the surface, several probing powers had already swept over him. They're all experts. Chu Hen was secretly alarmed. The people in front of him likely accounted for a large portion of the top figures recruited for the sacred war. Moreover, everyone was moving about peacefully and didn't interact much with each other. After roughly observing the current environment, Chu Hen took the lead and headed toward the nearest stone statue. It was a stone statue of an eagle. The giant eagle was about 100 meters wide, and half of its body was integrated into the rock wall behind it. Its front claws and head stretched forward as if it wanted to break through the shackles and tear apart the heavenly net. Swoosh! Chu Hen steadily flashed and landed on the back of the eagle statue. The huge statue was especially wide, and Chu Hen seemed to have landed on a platform. In addition to Chu Hen, there was another person sitting on the eagle's head. At this moment, that person woke up from his meditation and sighed helplessly. He said to himself, "It's really difficult." As soon as he finished speaking, he moved and flew towards the other human-shaped stone statue. It was obvious that all the stone statues here had some sort of secret hidden within them. Chu Hen hesitated for a moment, then approached the eagle's head. He took a deep breath and gently placed one hand on the head of the eagle statue. He closed his eyes slightly, and a strange energy rhythm was transmitted through his palm. Sure enough, Chu Hen secretly rejoiced. When he opened his eyes, there was a glimmer of hope. Immediately, he sat down, shielded himself from external interference, and tried to integrate his divine sense into the stone statue to explore the secrets hidden inside. Time flowed like water, silent and silent. Chu Hen's consciousness seemed to have entered a hazy, chaotic universe. Everything in the world, including the sun, moon, and stars, appeared blurry. And in the middle of the hazy chaos, there was a white phantom moving quickly. Chu Hen could clearly sense that the illusory figure was approaching him. Rumble. Like a meteorite breaking through the night sky, it accelerated continuously and set off a fierce sound. Screech. All of a sudden, a nebulous cyclone exploded in the center of the vast chaos, like the explosion of the heavens. A huge storm rapidly spread out from it, and then a falcon that could swallow all things in the world broke through the vast sky and swooped down. The eagle's eyes were like lightning, full of terrifying power. Wind soaring technique, unhindered between heaven and earth, without a shadow to be found. Chu Hen suddenly felt his mind tremble. It was like he was in a dream under endless wind and rain. Wind soaring technique? Chu Hen couldn't help but be surprised. It turned out to be another movement martial art. Moreover, this movement martial art was obviously more profound and exquisite than the shadow of the wind from before. With a bit of expectation and excitement, Chu Hen's divine sense was like a long river, pouring into the domineering eagle that swooped down. However, at the moment when Chu Hen was about to touch the giant eagle, an extremely strong repulsive force suddenly burst out from the other party. Boom! With a loud sound, Chu Hen's mind suddenly trembled, and the connection with the eagle statue was immediately broken. Chu Hen opened his eyes in astonishment, and his mind was full of doubts. What happened? Chapter 1396. Failed. Chu Hen, who was sitting on the eagle's head, opened his eyes, a puzzled look on his face. Just now, he was able to smoothly merge his divine sense into the stone statue, and he was able to clearly sense the framework of the wind-soaring technique. However, just as he was about to gain a deeper understanding of her, the connection was cut off. This caused Chu Hen to be even more surprised. After simply adjusting the restlessness in his heart, Chu Hen once again closed his eyes and meditated. Along with a wave of obscure and strange spatial fluctuations, Chu Hen's divine sense seemed as if it had passed through a myriad of mountains and seas, and it once again arrived at a boundlessly hazy, chaotic universe. But in less than the time it took to drink a cup of tea, Chu Hen's mind shook once more, as if he had woken up from a dream, and the communication with the eagle statue beneath him was like a receding tide, completely dissipating. I failed again. The ship does not hate the enemy. After the cham goo, after the knot. Opening his slightly confused eyes, Chu Hen's face revealed a profound look. He was stuck at the same place twice, so it was obvious that he hadn't accurately found the pattern. The vast Yuanyuan region was like a mysterious canyon that connected heaven and earth. The art of the enemy not far away, dark blue chi patterns floated in the air, as if they were suspended threads swimming in the air. The stone statues with peerless auras that seemed to be forged by the gods were even more ancient and majestic. The ship is not far from the Go School Lonely Earth. The ship was not far away from the Demon Apprentice Institute. Dark blue chi patterns floated in the air, like threads floating in the air. The scattered people sat on the stone statues, not disturbing each other, as if they were occupying their own territory, with a tacit understanding of not interfering with each other's business. Chu Hen's gaze swept across the group of people around him. Each of them exuded a rather powerful aura. What's that? Jiedi Ku Gue, Sun, Shu Suoyang Tong, Cha Nua stunned. Chu Hen's attention fell on a stone statue in the shape of a beast. Bam! The stone statue was shaped like a giant elephant. It had two long and sharp tusks, but its face was ferocious. The two tusks were nearly 100 meters long, and they looked like two long hooks that could draw the sky. A person was sitting on top of the elephant statue. The man was facing Chu Hen from the side. From the side, he looked like an ordinary person. However, the reason that attracted Chu Hen's attention was that the other party's aura was very stable. His breathing was calm and even, as if he was communicating with the heavens and the earth and was swimming in the vast universe, turning a blind eye to everything around him. He must have successfully sensed the ancient inheritance hidden within the statue. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to reach such a calm and steady state. With some surprise, Chu Hen continued to look at the others. Hoki-Yuan Ghost Ship Ball Battle, Gu, Ku, Cha, Gangi quickly discovered something. All the people with stable auras shared a common phenomenon. Their bodies were covered in a layer of dark blue light patterns that resembled a veil. Sun Dike's only grandson, Hen Yuyang Tung Gossamer Emperor, cleansing adversity chi, was like the spiritual chi of heaven and earth gathering from all directions, fusing into the bodies of those people at a slow speed. Could it be? Chu Hen's eyes lit up. Could it be that I need to temper my body with Emperor cleansing adversity chi to practice the martial arts in the stone statue? Ho-Kiyuan Ghost Ship Ball Battle, Gu, Ku-Cha, Gangol. The profound martial arts here were products from 10,000 years ago, and Emperor cleansing adversity chi was a powerful source of spiritual power that great Emperor Zhao Hua cultivated. After thinking about it, it was very likely that he could combine the two to obtain an inheritance. Immediately after, Chu Hen once again observed the people in the Yuan region. He cocked his head to listen to the 2 or 3 people whispering not far away. It is indeed, as the rumors say. If I want to practice the martial arts created by great Emperor Zhao Hua, I must temper my body with Emperor cleansing adversity chi. It's just that Emperor cleansing adversity chi is extremely overbearing, and the slightest carelessness will cause a backlash. If I can't suppress it, I will lose half my life even if I don't die. Wealth comes from danger. Any martial art created by great Emperor Zhao Hua is an unparalleled secret art. I don't want to miss this opportunity. Sun Biyuan only grandson technique battle, Yang technique complex. Well said. Ghost Sun Biyuan Ghost Ship Ball Battle Guyu Star just as Chu Hen thought. If he wanted to practice the peerless martial arts inherited by great Emperor Zhao Hua, he must have the assistance of Emperor cleansing adversity chi. However, he had seen with his own eyes how overbearing Emperor cleansing adversity chi was. Previously, the genius on the list, Deng Chai, had suffered because of it. If Jitao, the genius ranked 13th on the list, hadn't cut off one of her arms in time, Deng Chai would have died long ago. I wonder where the strongest secret art created by great Emperor Zhao Hua is. The corners of Chu Hen's eyes narrowed slightly, and a trace of doubt emerged between his brows. While pondering, Chu Hen's gaze swept across the many stone statues in the Yuan region. Then, as if he had an epiphany, he subconsciously looked at the giant sword statue in the innermost part of the Yuan region. Ghost Sun Buyuan Ghost Shipball Battle Yang Technique Complex. It was a 1,000-foot-long giant swordstone statue. The lower part of the sword was deeply embedded in the Emperor cleansing adversity river. Its imposing manner reached the sky and connected with the Styx River. Such a domineering and imposing aura belonged to the many stone statues in the entire Yuan region. The martial art contained in the statue was most likely the most powerful inheritance. This was Chu Hen's first thought. If that was the case, then everyone should be rushing to the statue. Kichiku Jutsu, however. In fact, there was only one person on the giant swordstone statue. Then, a cold voice came from the moon chakra sphere of the earth, cruel enemy. The person sat quietly on the hilt of the giant sword statue with his back facing everyone. The most surprising thing was that there was an indescribable blur to this person's back. The corners of Chu Hen's eyes narrowed. He tried to see the other person's figure clearly, but it was still a little blurry. Ghost Sun Buyuan Ghost Shipball Battle Yang Technique Complex. He couldn't even sense the slightest rhythm of the other person's aura. Sitting alone on the giant sword statue, he silently released an extraordinary majesty that didn't allow anyone to enter. An expert, an absolute expert. Ghost Sun Kicho Ghost Shipball Battle Yang Yulong Kao Sun Kicho Ghost Shipball Battle Yang Yulong Kao. It was just a blurry figure, but Chu Hen inexplicably felt an invisible pressure of danger. Sun Kicho Ghost Shipball Battle Yang Yulong Kao pondered. Chu Hen's gaze swept across the many stone statues in the Yuan region. He seemed to have an epiphany and subconsciously looked at the giant sword statue in the innermost part of the Yuan region. Even people like Xiaoyao Cheng and Ji Tao didn't have this kind of pressure. Soon after, Chu Hen shifted his gaze to another stone statue. A pair of giant hands stretched out from the stone wall. It was like the hands of a demon god stretching out from another plane of existence. The giant palms faced each other, separated by about 100 meters, and the longest finger was nearly 100 feet. The imposing manner was so strong that it seemed to summon all things in the universe. If the giant sword statue was said to gather the divine might of tens of thousands of people, then this pair of giant hands exuded an extraordinary majesty that seemed to control heaven and earth. There were 3 people standing on top of the giant hand sculpture. The 3 people were 2 men and 1 woman. Their clothes were very luxurious. One of the men wore clothes as white as snow and had a rather elegant demeanor. The woman exuded a noble aura. Although her eyes were lightly closed, one could still feel the cold arrogance of disdain between her long and narrow brows. The other person stood on the giant hand statue. He was dressed in black and had his side facing Chu Hen. He was tall and gave off a sharp aura that could pierce through everything. A faint smell of blood exuded from his body. The smell of blood was like a sharp weapon hidden in a scabbard. Suddenly, the black-clothed man suddenly opened his eyes. A cold glint from the corner of his ice-cold eyes suddenly swept over Chu Hen. Their gazes met by chance, and without any warning, their gazes intertwined. The skill of learning detection skill caused by the enemy far and cruel enemy ball in an instant. Chu Hen's mind trembled faintly, and it felt as if he was facing a bloodthirsty, ferocious beast that was half asleep. An aura of danger that made one's heart tremble involuntarily assaulted them. At the same time, a mournful scream suddenly rang out from another direction of the Yuan region. Many people, including Chu Hen, who had been awakened, turned to look. A disheveled young man was shrouded in a dark blue light. The powerful Yinjing misfortune Qi was like the netherworld flames from hell, quickly engulfing him. "Save me! Save me! The man was frightened and uneasy. He lost his balance and stumbled and fell from the statue below him. No one dared to step forward to rescue him. Even if someone wanted to help, they were held back by their companions. Jie Yuan Ku Yuan Complex Cha Zhan Lung Qing Hate Dash. Under countless horrified gazes, the man fell into the pure adversity river at the bottom of the Yuanyuan region. His flesh and skin rapidly withered and turned pitch black. In less than 5 seconds, his screams came to an abrupt end, and he instantly turned into a pile of ashes. Oh my God! Hiss! A perfectly fine person had evaporated into nothingness in the blink of an eye. Everyone who witnessed this scene couldn't help but gasp. Their eyes widened, and their faces turned deathly pale. Chu Hen also frowned slightly, a trace of vigilance appearing on his face. Di Yinjing Misfortune Qi was indeed overbearing. At the same time, he felt a lot more respect for the world-shaking great Emperor Zhao Huang. Gently breathing a sigh of relief, Chu Hen calmed his mind a little. Although the scene just now had shocked many people, there were still some who were particularly calm, as if this kind of thing was nothing new. On the other hand, the people on the giant sword statue and the giant hand statue didn't even open their eyes. The black-robed man immersed himself in his cultivation again and didn't spare them another glance. Chu Hen glanced at the silhouette of the man in black from afar. After a slight hesitation, he immediately closed his eyes and spread his divine sense into the giant eagle statue under him. While communicating with the power of inheritance inside the stone statue, Chu Hen tried to remove the quintessential essence shield outside his body and opened his meridians to guide the surrounding Di Yinjing Qi into his body in an orderly manner. Sun Ku enmity Fong, Sun Hen enmity, Gu Cha enmity Sun Ku's hatred, Sun Hen's hatred, Gu Cha's hatred. The woman had a noble temperament. Even though her eyes were closed, one could still feel the cold arrogance of disdain from her long and narrow eyebrows. Buzz, innumerable strands of dark blue aura converged like 100 rivers, and Chu Hen was like a container that accepted these overbearing external forces. A steady stream of quintessential essence mixed with the Di Yinjing Qi, flowing through the 8 extraordinary meridians, and finally back and forth in the purple palace of quintessential essence to complete the heavenly cycle. An indescribable warmth spread in Chu Hen's body. It was like soaking in a hot spring, and there was a kind of refreshing feeling. Screech! Very quickly, Chu Hen's divine sense roamed through the vast and boundless wilderness once again. Along with the majestic nebula vortex that blossomed in the primal chaos, a falcon that seemed to be able to devour the world tore apart the heavenly net in the sky. Setting off boundless divine might, it swooped down towards Chu Hen. Sun Cho Yuan Ku Jima Cold Technique Secret Yang Chu Hen faced the eagle, and this time, his divine sense successfully caught the other party's existence. Boom! Sun Yuan Qian Cool Boat Ball from Noisy Show. Far, the moment his consciousness intersected with the eagle, it was as if the stars in the sky had exploded and the sky had split apart. Chu Hen seemed to be roaming the void as he transformed into a flowing light eagle that moved freely between the heavens and earth. Wind soaring technique. The sky was their home, and everything was under their feet. Chu Hen continued to integrate the profound mysteries of this movement technique. He was like a phantom gliding across the sky, flashing to every corner at the speed of light. Whoosh! Suddenly, when Chu Hen was trying to comprehend the wind-soaring art, an extremely sharp and dangerous aura suddenly attacked him. The enemy is not far from the place Sun Cha is stirred up by the ghost of the old master. His connection with the stone statue was forcibly severed, and Chu Hen, who was in the origin region, opened his eyes. His pupils suddenly trembled, and his pupils, which had shrunk to the size of a needle tip, reflected a sharp blade of light that was spinning rapidly. Xiao! Without the slightest hesitation, Chu Hen leaped up. Hiss! The beam of light slid past Chu Hen's left arm. After a string of blood blossomed, it directly struck the giant eagle sculpture below Chu Hen. Bang! A heavy explosion rang out, accompanied by an ear-piercing, slicing sound. Under Chu Hen's gaze, which was filled with shock, the huge stone statue that spanned 100 meters was forcibly split apart from the middle. It extended from the eagle's head all the way to its body. Whoosh! The ice-cold and merciless blade of light emitted an endless sharpness was deeply embedded in the thick stone wall. Upon a closer look, one would see that the blade of light was an axe. It was extremely sharp, with a blade as broad as a knife and a ring-shaped handle at the bottom. A strong smell of blood and destruction spread out. Then an ice-cold voice was heard. Hocho Kiki Complex Learning Mo Yangji Zhan. I don't know why, but I don't like the look of you. This book came from. Chapter 1397. I don't know why, but I don't like you. Sun Cook could not help but learn for Zhan Yu. The cold and indifferent voice was full of disdain, like a high and mighty noble mocking a commoner. The magnificent eagle sculpture was split into two, and the neat cut in the middle was like a piece of tofu that had been cut by a sharp knife. He did not hold back at all. They were here to take his life. A long and thin wound opened up below Chu Hen's left shoulder, and warm blood slowly flowed out. Chu Hen's gaze was gloomy. His eyes were suffused with a faint red light. He forcefully endured the disorderly Yinjing misfortune chi that was wantonly roaming around in his body. His eyes revealed an eerie coldness as he directly looked over. A tall, black-clothed figure stood coldly in the void. One of the three figures that had landed on the giant hand statue was now missing. Chu Hen clenched his fists and said in a deep voice with a cold gaze, "Who are you?" Lung Huayu was not in charge of this lone patrol boat. The other party's expression did not change as he lightly spat out a few words. War God Palace, Hilianshi, ship far away, cruel enemy detection by lonesome promise learning boom. War God Palace? Sun Ku is not the most troublesome opponent. Sun Ku didn't know that the earth-defying ball was too powerful. Chu Hen's pupils immediately contracted. The rapidly approaching light vortex split everything, just like a small storm that was constantly expanding. Hearing these three words, Chu Hen's heartstrings couldn't help but tremble. Isn't this too much of a coincidence? It was such a coincidence that he was unlucky, encountering people from the War God Palace here. At the same time, the commotion here had also directly alarmed the surrounding people. When everyone saw the scene in front of them, they all revealed a sincere look of horror. What? Hilianchi? One of the 5 Saint Kings of the Battle God Palace, the god of punishment, a terrifying existence ranked 9th on the Wind Cloud ranking. Dueling god of war. He was ranked 9th on the Wind Cloud leaderboard. The ship does not hate the earth, the ship hates the cold. He was truly a terrifying figure in the top 10 of the Wind Cloud ranking list. The word genius was no longer enough to describe this kind of person. Later enmity is not without feelings. Sun Chayu Gu is not skilled. Shield of punishment. After hearing the other party's name, Chu Hen's heart surged like a storm. His gaze subconsciously swept across the other 2 figures on the stone statue. The man and woman did not open their eyes and were still sitting upright. Chu Hen's thoughts spun rapidly as he thought to himself that the other party did not recognize him. He immediately pretended to be calm and said in a weak tone, "What do you mean? I don't think I've offended you." However, Hilianchi only stared coldly at Chu Hen's frail figure. There seemed to be a mocking look in his eyes. "Indeed, you didn't offend me, but I just feel that you're an eyesore." There didn't seem to be any reason. Chu Hen slightly heaved a sigh of relief. Soon after, he cupped his hands together and said, "Since you feel that I'm an eyesore, then I'll leave." Chu Hen had no intention of fighting head-on. Number 9 on the honor roll. Even if he went all out, the probability of him defeating the other party was less than 20%. After saying that, Chu Hen pretended to be timid as he held his bleeding arm and turned to leave. However, just as he turned around, Hilian Chi's disdainful voice came from behind him again before he could even take a step out. "Behind the earth, behind the earth, behind the enemy, behind the moon. As long as I feel that something is an eyesore, I will always destroy it." Wong. A cold chill swept out. Everyone's expression changed, and their gazes towards Chu Hen unwittingly became a little more pitiful. Xing, with a light tremble, the axe that had pierced through the eagle statue and embedded itself into the stone wall slid out. Then, it streaked across the air and landed in He Lianqi's hand. The ring-shaped handle rotated in He Lianqi's hand, and the ice-cold axe flickered with a deadly cold light. I've always trusted my intuition. I believe that you definitely have a reason to die in my hands. She spoke indifferently, without any fluctuation of emotion. She looked at Chu Hen as if she was looking at a dead man. The earth is not a ghost enemy. Learning from the lonely ball, if my intuition is wrong, you can only blame on your bad luck. Whoosh! As his voice faded, a sharp hum reverberated in the air. The axe in Lianqi's hand suddenly shot out like a whirlwind blade, rapidly slicing apart the Di Yinjing misfortune qi permeating the Yuan region. The axe rotated at high speed, releasing a destructive roar as it slashed towards Chu Hen. A sure-kill aura. Chu Hen's pupils immediately contracted. The rapidly approaching whirlwind split everything in its path, like a small storm that was constantly expanding. Even a Saint King Realm Master would be instantly cut in half by this whirlpool of light. Hiss! In the next instant, a heavy explosion erupted high up in the sky. Frenzied chi waves wreaked havoc in the sky. The peerlessly sharp axe dragged a bunch of afterimages as it returned to He Lianqi's hand. Meanwhile, Chu Hen was directly sent flying. Everyone couldn't help but lift their eyes. He didn't die. Chi. As Chu Hen retreated, his entire body emitted violent and fierce purple lightning. In his hand, there was an additional black rune sword that was swaying with ancient runes. Runic lights continuously flowed out from the sword's body, displaying an ancient and desolate aura. Lianqi's eyelids twitched slightly. The axe that had returned to his hand spun twice between his fingers before being thrown out again. Whoosh! The flinging axe, which was flickering with an inexhaustible sharpness, rotated at an extremely high speed. It instantly transformed into a fiery wind divine wheel. It swept up a terrifying force that blotted out the sky and covered the earth as it chopped towards Chu Hen. This strike was several times faster than the first strike, be it in terms of attack or speed. Chu Hen's expression changed, and purple light surged in the depths of his eyes. Buzz, there is no enmity in the ground, but there is no enmity in the ball. A vigorous stream of air stacked up, accompanied by a rising purple flame radiance. A mysterious light shield with a purple eye pattern immediately appeared in front of him. Shield of punishment, Chu Hen shouted. Bang! There was a loud sound, and in an instant, the flaming wheels formed by the axes hit the purple light shield. In just a moment, the mysterious shield was directly shattered, like a broken bubble shattering into pieces. Chu Hen's heart trembled. This was the first time he had seen the shield of punishment so fragile. There was no time to be surprised. The flinging axe that had pierced through the shield of punishment arrived. In a hurry, Chu Hen held the black rune sword in his hand horizontally in front of him. The long sword shone brightly, and at the same time, dozens of dark green lightning beams swam up. Not far behind, Chiu Ku Sun Cha Zhanyu how two different colors of lightning intertwined like divine vines. Suddenly, the black rune sword rapidly widened and strengthened, immediately turning into a 5 or 6 meter long sword, overflowing with divine light. Boom! In the next second, the incomparably fierce whirlpool of light once again heavily impacted on the giant sword in front of Chu Hen. Sun Kuchio and Mo Long Chio. As soon as the two collided, a collision comparable to the most powerful spear and shield exploded head-on. A chaotic shockwave surged in all directions. Countless dazzling light patterns blossomed wantonly. The vast Yuanyuan region was in turmoil. Many of the stone statues trembled incessantly, and the crowd was awakened one after another. The Dian purifying adversity river at the bottom of the origin region violently swayed like magma from the Earth's core, setting off raging waves. The incomparably fierce impact went all the way down. Chu Hen suddenly felt his arm go numb, and the black rune sword in his hand was almost shaken off. As the lightning on the sword exploded, the ferocious force blasted Chu Hen into the rock wall behind him. The knot is far from Go Sunball alone, therefore unable to connect. Bang! He smashed heavily into the rock wall, causing rocks to tumble everywhere. Chu Hen's internal organs trembled, and a stream of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. This book comes from Chapter 1398. Bang! A loud noise akin to the violent impact of a mountain reverberated across the vast origin region. Fierce gales wreaked havoc in all directions, sending rocks flying everywhere. Large chunks of rock cracked and fell into the netherworld like purifying adversity river below. Chu Hen slammed into a rock wall behind him, the terrifying impact causing huge spiderweb-like cracks to extend up and down the stone wall. His chi and blood churned, and his internal organs shook violently. As a smear of bright red blood flowed from the corner of his mouth, Chu Hen's face immediately turned incomparably gloomy, and his eyes flashed with a cold light. At the same time, the purifying adversity chi swimming in Chu Hen's body grew even more chaotic. The tyrannical power was like a raging cyclone, rampaging through Chu Hen's major meridians. Suddenly, Chu Hen's flesh, blood, and bones felt as if they were on fire. The other Di Yinjing misfortune chi gathered in the origin region seemed to be responding to his call and surged towards Chu Hen. It looked as if Chu Hen's body was covered in a layer of blue tarsal flames. That guy? Everyone who witnessed this scene narrowed their eyes. Their faces were filled with astonishment. A hint of astonishment flashed in He Lianqi's eyes. His lips slightly moved as he looked at Chu Hen, who had a weak aura with some interest. He's not dead yet. If someone else had said this, they might have been considered arrogant and conceited. But the person who spoke was He Lianqi of the War God Palace, and his words seemed to be a kind of praise for Chu Hen in the eyes of the crowd. To receive 2 consecutive attacks from He Lianqi and not die, there really weren't many people present who could do it. Those familiar with He Lianqi knew that the seemingly simple and direct attack was in fact the most deadly killing move. Every swing of the axe contained an absolute killing power. The name Dual God of War came from He Lianqi's thunderous attack that was enough to kill him. This person has some skills. I wonder where he came from. The surrounding crowd couldn't help but be curious about Chu Hen. Yes, it's already very impressive to be able to take 2 of He Lianqi's moves when Di Yinjing's chi entered his body. No matter how powerful he is, after today, he will only be a dead man. At this moment, He Lianqi's gaze shifted to the black sword in Chu Hen's hand. His eyes lit up. Looks like it's because of this sword. He Lianqi was extremely confident in his own strength. At the same time, he could tell at a glance that Chu Hen's weapon was extraordinary. The punishment-throwing axe that He Lianqi used was a divine weapon on the leaderboard. However, the weapon in Chu Hen's hand did not show any signs of damage even after 2 consecutive head-on clashes. It must also be a ranked divine artifact. Receiving He Lianqi's arrogant gaze, Chu Hen, who was already holding back his anger, was already burning with rage. "Do you want this sword?" Chu Hen leaned against the stone wall with his back against the rock behind him. He Lianqi tilted his head slightly with a sneer on his face. "If you want to exchange your sword for your life, you can save your energy. I never negotiate with a dead man." In his opinion, Chu Hen was no longer a living person. He wanted the other party's sword and his life. However, what was surprising was that Chu Hen actually laughed. There was an indescribable arrogance and strangeness when he laughed with his bloody mouth. Why? Suddenly, Chu Hen raised his head and a piercingly cold intent exploded from his cold eyes. He raised the sharp sword in his hand and spread his fingers. The sword that was swaying with ancient mysterious patterns immediately turned into a beam of light that shot towards He Lianqi. "If you want this sword, then I'll give it to you, Xing." The loud and clear sound of the sword caused the surrounding space to tremble. The black sword was like a shooting star that flew across the sky, sweeping up 2 intertwining lightning vines. He Lianqi's eyelids lifted slightly. Insignificant skill. After saying that, he stretched out his palm, and a circle of light gathered in his palm. Wong! The soft power that was like water ripples spread out vertically in the sky, and the sharp tip of the sword was immediately and steadily fixed on Ilianchi's palm. However, in just an instant, a strong and rapid flow of air whistled over. There was a blurry afterimage in the air. So, there was a slight tremble of the airwave. Ilianchi suddenly felt a huge force coming from his palm. In the next second, Chu Hen suddenly appeared in front of him with the sword hilt in his hand. What a fast movement speed! The surrounding people were secretly shocked. Before they could react, the sharp sword in Chu Hen's hand shone brightly. Accompanied by thousands of flashes of thunder, two huge lightning pillars intertwined with each other and soared into the sky. The majestic momentum immediately crushed down. The lightning dragon coiled and swooped down towards Ilianchi. Ilianchi was especially surprised. He never thought that Chu Hen could still launch a counterattack. Ilianchi's eyes narrowed and he raised one hand. The execution axe flew into his palm from not far away. Then it spun at high speed in his palm and immediately turned into a sharp vortex that tore through the air. Overestimating yourself. The moment his voice fell, the rapidly spinning execution axe was like a blooming nebula vortex, sweeping up endless destructive momentum as it flew out. Rumble! Light splashed everywhere and a deafening sound rang out. The incomparably sharp execution axe was like a divine light that could cut through everything. It directly cut through the two peerless lightning pillars. Piercing through lightning, unstoppable, a dazzling light exploded between the two of them. The executioner's axe of light transformed into a whirlwind flying blade that tore apart thousands of lightning nets. The majestic lightning that was like a dragon python was instantly smashed into pieces, exploding everywhere. Chu Hen's brows furrowed, and he immediately withdrew his sword to defend. Ding! Sparks and fiery rain splashed in the sky. The black rune longsword blocked in front of him. The huge impact force entered his body through the sword. Chu Hen once again spat out a mouthful of blood. Humph! Ilianchi's face was full of playfulness. Only this little bit can. Before he could finish his words, an extremely fierce and shocking aura suddenly attacked him from behind. Ilianchi was shocked and suddenly turned around. In an instant, a black shadow that emitted a monstrous and domineering aura directly entered his eyes. The rhythm of the space was restless. The black shadow's fist force exploded, and a force that could destroy mountains and rivers surged down. Ilianchi's pupils trembled slightly, and a look of shock appeared on his face. Bang! An earth-shattering explosion sounded. The violent shock wave was comparable to the explosion of a meteorite, and the remaining power of the frenzied wave swept in all directions. Everyone's heart trembled. Under numerous gazes that were filled with shock, Ilianchi was actually blasted flying. At the same time, Chu Hen directly used the powerful impact of the execution axe to retreat to the back. He had no intention of continuing to fight. The incomparably chaotic Yin Jing Qi in his body had reached a level that Chu Hen had no choice but to care about. Swoosh! Stepping on the air, Chu Hen swept through the air like an afterimage and quickly left this place. Just when everyone was shocked that Chu Hen could escape, a dazzling divine rainbow light beam crossed the sky without any warning. Then, like a rainbow bridge, it blocked in front of Chu Hen. Everyone's expression changed. They saw that the source of the light beam was a noble and gorgeous figure with a cold and arrogant aura. Her palms were slightly closed, and an extremely strong energy fluctuation was condensed in her palms. It's her, Xingshu War God, Qi Qianling. Chapter 1399. Qianqian. Divine King Wu Ji's latest chapter. War God Xingshu, Qi Qianling. Exclamations rang out from the ancient stone statues in the Yuanyuan region. Everyone's expression changed. Just when many people thought that Chu Hen could escape from War God Ilianchi's hands, a dazzling beam of divine light suddenly traversed the sky like a gorgeous rainbow bridge, blocking Chu Hen's path. War God Xingshu. Chu Hen's heart skipped a beat. Looking sideways, he saw that at the source of the divine rainbow light beam, a young figure exuding a cold and noble aura was gathering astonishing energy rhythmically in her palms. All kinds of luxurious light runes glowed around her, and below her, a complicated and beautiful secret talisman array was operating at a high speed. It's her. Chu Hen couldn't help clenching his fists. It was the woman on the giant hand statue. Before Chu Hen could react, Qi Qianling clasped her palms together, her indifferent eyes filled with disdain for Chu Hen. Glorious trial. Buzz. The moment her voice faded, the divine rainbow light beam in front of Chu Hen suddenly swept up countless tassels of light runes. An extremely strong wave of power surged out from every inch of the light beam, and then, accompanied by an incomparably dazzling light, the light beam rapidly burst. Chu Hen was shocked. He immediately retreated. But at the same time, an incomparably heavy and earth-shattering explosion rang out, and the rainbow bridge light pillar that spanned 1,000 meters directly exploded. Every single one of them contained the power of destruction. Every inch of it released a tremendous force. The moment the light beam burst, space rapidly distorted to the extreme, and a mountain-shattering impact force poured onto Chu Hen's body. Bang! The incomparably fierce force whizzed over, and his already injured internal organs trembled even more violently. A mouthful of blood spurted out from his mouth, and the Yinjing misfortune chi that was disorderly flowing in his body seemed to have opened up a gap, and it flowed wantonly. Streaks of dark blue aura shot out, and at the same time, Yinjing misfortune chi from all directions rushed over like a tidal wave. The internal and external pressure directly caused Chu Hen to feel as if he had sunk into a quagmire. A huge, invisible force dragged Chu Hen downwards. Buzz. The Emperor's purifying misfortune chi enveloped Chu Hen's body like the death fire, and the dark river below continued to set off monstrous waves. In the vast origin region, Chu Hen was like a bird with broken wings, constantly falling towards the bottom of the abyss. There's no saving him. He's dead meat. The people outside shook their heads secretly, as if they had already seen the tragic scene of Chu Hen being vaporized into nothingness by Di Yinjing's chi. Damn it! Chu Hen's eyes reddened from the impact of endless divine divination's cleansing misfortune. He gritted his teeth and shouted in a deep voice, "Back off! Hua!" Then a strange purple light flashed in his eyes, and a purple brilliance quickly spread out from Chu Hen's body. That is, everyone's expression changed once again. Under the attack of the purple brilliance, the Emperor's purifying misfortune chi wrapped around Chu Hen's body was burned and devoured. This flame can burn the Emperor's purifying misfortune chi. How is that possible? However, before everyone had time to be shocked, the sudden trembling sound of a sharp weapon that could tear everything apart shook everyone's eardrums. Swoosh! The chaotic chi waves that filled the sky and covered the earth were split apart one after another. A beam of rotating light axe blade was like a flywheel that could grind all living things into pieces as it pierced through the sky. With the speed of an aurora, it chased after Chu Hen. Chu Hen, who had not yet completely stabilized his body, had his pupils rapidly shrank to the size of a needle tip. In such a state, he had no time to make any defense or dodge. Bang! The next moment, a circle of mighty light swept out in all directions in midair. A rain of light splattered in all directions, and chi patterns crisscrossed. Under countless pairs of trembling eyes, the light-spinning axe blade was like a star that swept across the universe, firmly striking Chu Hen's body. The frantic sound of the storm tearing apart was ear-piercing. At the same time as blood splattered, a bone-deep wound opened up on Chu Hen's chest. An unprecedented huge impact invaded every inch of his flesh and organs, and large mouthfuls of blood constantly gushed out of Chu Hen's mouth. At the same time, the hand that was holding the formless Emperor blade weakly loosened. The black rune longsword immediately flew out of his hand. Rumble! The incomparably heavy and violent force directly accelerated the speed of Chu Hen's fall. The huge emperor's purifying misfortune chi, like a ghost fire, once again surged over. Chu Hen rapidly fell to the bottom of the Yuan region. The netherworld river below was like an ancient giant beast with its bloody mouth wide open. A strong aura of danger surged over. The signal of death immediately occupied his mind. Chu Hen only felt that he didn't even have the strength to move, allowing the huge impact of the axe to strike him down. However, there was not the slightest despair or fear in Chu Hen's eyes. There is only endless coldness and intent. As the scene in his line of sight continued to zoom out, Chu Hen looked up at the sky, his ice-cold eyes reflecting the disdainful and arrogant attitude of the dueling war god He Lianqi. "I won't send you off." The corners of He Lianqi's mouth curved into a mocking smile. Then, with a loud boom, a sky-toppling wave exploded. The dark torrent was like the entrance to the hell of death. The river water, which contained incomparably tyrannical power, came crashing down. The second before his line of sight was flooded, Chu Hen's eyes clearly surged with intense killing intent. He stared at He Lianqi and roared inwardly, "If I don't die, I will definitely slaughter you all." Splash! In an instant, Chu Hen was like a butterfly that had fallen into the magma of the Earth's core. A series of bubbles emerged, and then he was instantly swallowed up and disappeared without a trace. Everyone who witnessed this scene felt a chill down their spines, and their palms were covered in cold sweat. Their eyes were filled with fear as they looked at He Lianqi and Qi Qianling. How ruthless! Falling into the Dian pure adversity river. I'm afraid not even dregs will be left. That person is really unlucky. How did he offend the people from the Palace of War Gods? Without a doubt, Chu Hen would die without a doubt. Just the Dian pure adversity river was enough to evaporate a person into ashes. And if Chu Hen fell into the Dian pure adversity river, not even his ashes would be left. You're a bit meddlesome. At the same time, the dueling war god He Lianqi raised his eyebrows slightly and looked at the star disparity war god and Qi Qianling playfully. Both of He Lianqi's hands were holding onto a weapon. One was his own dueling axe swing. The other was the black rune longsword that fell from Chu Hen's hand. Qi Qianling glanced at him coldly. "I'm just afraid that you'll let him escape." "Heh, you think too highly of him." He Lianqi sneered disdainfully, then said in a slightly mocking tone, "To be able to make two war gods take action, he should be proud." Qi Qianling didn't pay much attention to him. Her figure flashed and returned to the giant stone statue. "Hee hee, you really like to cause trouble." A calm laughter followed. The white-robed figure on the giant stone statue had unknowingly opened his eyes. Qi Qianling first glanced at He Lianqi, then said, "Who knows what kind of illness he has this time?" As soon as she finished speaking, an afterimage flashed, and He Lianqi immediately landed beside the two of them. "Looks like I didn't kill the wrong person." "Oh." The white-robed man's gaze twitched slightly. He Lianqi waved the long sword in his hand, and the air reverberated with a resonant vibration. "This thing is the Formless Emperor Blade." Formless Emperor Blade? Qi Qianling's eyes flashed coldly when she heard these words. Her cold gaze subconsciously swept towards the dark underworld river at the bottom of the origin region. "He's the one who killed Chunlu." A hint of surprise appeared between the white-clothed man's brows. "If that's the case, I really admire his courage to walk right into the trap." He Lianqi didn't say much. He just stared intently at the formless Emperor Blade and dueling axe in his hand. Then, the corners of his mouth curled into a proud smile. Priest War God, Ji Liang. On the distant stone statue, everyone looked deeply at He Lianqi and the white-robed man beside Qi Qianling. Compared to War God Dueling Axe and War God Xingshu, everyone's reverence for War God Ji Liang was much clearer. "I just got here, but I haven't seen Ji Liang yet." "Don't look too much. The Life Honor Priest isn't called that for nothing." Everyone only dared to whisper. No one dared to talk loudly. It was as if they didn't even have the courage to look at the three people. 3 of the War God Palace's 5 Saint Kings have come. What a rare sight. "No, it's 4. "What? Where's the other one?" Everyone's heartstrings trembled, and their gazes subconsciously swept towards the most majestic and domineering stone statue in the entire origin region. It was a 1,000-meter-tall sword statue. It stood in the sky, and the ground connected to the underworld river. At the top of the giant sword was a blurry figure that seemed to be in chaos and an illusion. Chapter 1400. 1 second to remember. This is a wonderful free reading without a pop-up window. In the vast and ancient origin region, numerous towering and majestic stone statues stood in great numbers, giving off a peerless aura. A primordial aura permeated the air, and every stone statue was like an ancient god guarding this place. Just a moment ago, a particularly surprising scene had taken place. No one had expected that the two war gods of the War God Palace would make a move and leave a passerby forever in the Fortune Emperor Palace. Of course, everyone could only shake their heads inwardly. Their eyes were filled with awe as they looked at the three figures on the giant hand statue. After this small interlude, the vast origin region slowly returned to its tranquility. Everyone continued to comprehend the secret inheritance hidden within the numerous stone statues. In a certain corner of the origin region, a giant stone statue clad in thorny back armor exuded a sinister aura like a prehistoric beast. On the back of the giant beast, there was a slender young man with a calm temperament standing there like a wooden pillar. He stared meaningfully at the Yin calamity, cleansing river flowing at the bottom of the abyss, seemingly pondering something. "It's the Hanyin Sex Izhou," someone whispered not far away. "Yes, when did he arrive?" "I don't know. He seems to have arrived a long time ago." "Izhou, lunatic E." Izhou acted as if he didn't notice the gazes around him. He merely shook his head as he looked at the flowing body below that resembled the Nether River. "Do you know him?" At this time, a deep but powerful voice came from behind. Izhou raised his gaze and glanced to the side. A tall figure in a gray robe walked over unhurriedly. The other party's attire was very ordinary. His ordinary appearance would not attract too much attention from others. However, this person exuded a different temperament from others. This temperament was like a proud and aloof eagle or a cold and aloof wolf, giving off a cold feeling of a swordsman in the night. But such an ordinary person was actually a top expert ranked 13th on the wind cloud list, Ji Tao. "Yes, I've seen him twice," Izhou said indifferently. Ji Tao was slightly surprised, and his eyes darkened slightly. "I've only seen him twice, but even Izhou feels that it's a pity. It seems that he's not an ordinary person." Izhou raised his eyebrows and said, "I have a feeling." His voice paused for a moment. Then he said word by word, "He won't die so easily. I don't think anyone would say that your premonition is very accurate. How about a bet? What are we betting on? If I win, you'll give me the 13th place on the wind cloud ranking. If I lose, I'll teach you the shadow flowing skill." Ji Tao was obviously taken aback when he heard this. He looked at Izhou's half-smiling face with a strange expression. If the person who said this was someone else, Ji Tao would not take it seriously, but the person standing in front of him was Izhou. Even though everyone knew his nickname was Lunatic, and even Hanyin Sec senior and junior brothers always felt that their first senior brother, E, was unreliable, Ji Tao knew that Lunatic E was not crazy. Izhou was not ranked highly on the honor roll. However, Ji Tao, who was ranked 13th, did not underestimate him at all. "Oomph." Ji Tao sneered. "He really is a lunatic." Then he said, "Even if he's lucky enough not to die, it's impossible for him to leave the holy war alive. That person is really too strong." Ji Tao, who was usually aloof and cold, said in a serious tone. The corners of his eyes narrowed slightly, and he unconsciously looked forward. Izhou looked up as well. Above the huge sword stone statue that towered into the sky and connected the ground to the Netherworld River, there was a hazy and dreamy figure that seemed to be in another plane in the distorted space. Everyone present, including Ji Tao, Izhou, and even He Lianqi, Qi Qianling, and Ji Liang, the three great war gods, could only serve as that person's background. It was deep and dark, and the storm was battering. At this moment, Chu Hen seemed to have been swept into an endless undercurrent in the deep sea. The bottom of the seemingly calm Di Yan's pure adversity river was filled with an extremely terrifying savage power. Wave after wave of destructive and overbearing power was like a terrifying turbine that almost crushed Chu Hen. The terrifying power from Di Yan's pure adversity constantly invaded his body. Coupled with his heavy injuries, Chu Hen completely lost the ability to move. He used his last sliver of consciousness to protect himself with the bloodline power of the chaotic body and the sacred demonic eye body. He did not think of anything else. But this was like an arrow at the end of its flight. He Lianqi's heavy blow just now had directly penetrated his organs. The great injuries had worsened under the impact of Di Yan's pure adversity. No matter how great the power of the two bloodline boundaries was, it was only a matter of time before Chu Hen was devoured by the Di Yan's pure adversity river. His consciousness grew weaker and weaker. Chu Hen was like a small boat swept into a deep sea storm. Very soon, the last sliver of light in his mind faded away. In an instant, the black light and purple demonic flames surrounding Chu Hen's body rapidly weakened. The Di Yan's pure adversity that had surged over from all directions began to invade him. The tremendous power immediately occupied every inch of Chu Hen's flesh, tendons, and bones. A terrifying tearing force began to twist. Screech. A loud bird's cry resounded through the nine heavens. In the ancient ruins surrounded by mountains and forests, there were broken walls and collapsed ancient buildings everywhere. There was a strange altar in this place. The altar was covered with mysterious and complicated runes in numbers. And above the altar, a huge shadow of a divine bird spread its wings, and the glow on its body covered the sky and earth. Buzz, suddenly, right at this moment, a peerlessly beautiful figure that was beneath the divine bird image faintly trembled, and then her lightly closed eyes opened to reveal a pair of ruby-like eyes. "What's going on?" A trace of panic and some doubt appeared on her face. That silly boy. Emo Qingli bit her red lips, and the doubt in her eyes grew stronger. Just now, she suddenly found that the connection between her and Chu Hen's demon eye bloodline boundary had been cut off. She had established a sharing of the demon eye's power with Chu Hen. But now, she could no longer sense the existence of the demon eye's power. Could it be him? Emo Qingli's face was a little worried and a touch of sadness. Her jade-like hands gently clenched into fists, and her red eyes revealed a red glow. Buzz! In the next moment, a monstrous red flame rose from behind her. In an instant, the entire altar was instantly turned into a blazing and terrifying sea of fire. The huge shadow of the sacred wing heavenly flame bird was like a divine bird bathed in flames. The ground collapsed, and the fall cracks were like a huge spider web that had opened. Screech. The bird's cry was long and loud, as if it wanted to take off from the sky. Boom! With a loud noise, a mighty and terrifying aura swept out, and all the ancient buildings except the altar were instantly turned into dust and debris. No matter who it is, I will do it for you. Chapter 1401. It was chaotic and hazy, like a dream or an illusion. The hazy wisp of consciousness seemed to have been drawn into an endless sea of storms. Blazing waves whistled past his ears, and an ancient call seemed to have passed through thousands of mountains and rivers, through the vast sea of people, and finally echoed softly in his mind. Chu Hen. The erratic voice was peculiar and faintly discernible. It was like a father's soft call, mixed with a mother's gentle voice. Henner, wake up. The gentle voice was like a warm breeze blowing past his ears, intoxicating him. Mother, is that you? Amidst the blur, as if he had melded into the fog, he couldn't find his direction. Following that, a powerful and domineering voice exploded in his mind. How can the son of I, Chu Hen Tian, be mediocre? Mediocre? In that instant, as if he had woken up from a dream, Chu Hen opened his eyes and sat up abruptly. Following that, he let out a hiss. The intense pain in his chest caused his body to tremble. I'm not dead yet. Chu Hen held his chest lightly with one hand, a cold glint surging in his eyes. The memories from before he fainted immediately surged. He clearly remembered that he was struck into Dian's pure adversity river by Helian Chi of the War God Palace. When he thought of the disdainful look on Helian Chi's face in the last scene, Chu Hen's eyes surged with coldness. Chu Hen clenched his fists, his knuckles making a crisp sound. As he increased his strength, it immediately caused the injuries in his body to worsen. Pain spread throughout his body. Only then did Chu Hen realize that he was in a sorry state. His clothes had been dyed dark red by blood. He lay on his side by the shore. The Dian's pure adversity river not far away was like the underworld river that led to hell, emitting a dark and strange aura. Where am I? Chu Hen had a look of confusion on his face. He swept his gaze across his surroundings. The Dian's pure adversity river in front of him flowed through a karst cave with no end in sight. The sky above his head was dark and gloomy, like an undeveloped chaotic domain. Layers of Dian's pure adversity Chi enveloped the sky like a curtain that covered the sky. There was no obvious path ahead. Chu Hen turned back to look behind him. What came into view was a huge flight of stairs. There were thousands of steps, and each step was nearly half a meter high. Looking up, it was difficult to see the top. After a moment of hesitation, Chu Hen gritted his teeth and slowly got up. Enduring the pain from his internal injuries, he walked up the stairs. The ice-cold chill that originated from the stone slabs of the stairs spread through the soles of Chu Hen's feet, and the air was filled with an ancient and dusty aura. As Chu Hen moved forward, he used the recovery power of the immortal talisman spirit tree in his Niwen palace to heal his internal injuries. The injuries he had suffered this time could be said to be the most serious. When he fell into Dian's pure adversity river, he could clearly feel that he had brushed shoulders with death. In addition to the heavy impact of Helian Chi, the invasion of Di Yinjing's bad luck almost tore Chu Hen apart. Fortunately, Chu Hen's physique was far stronger than an ordinary person's. Coupled with the support of the two great bloodline boundary powers, he managed to survive. Of course, luck was also a major factor. If Chu Hen had continued to soak in the water, he would have turned into ashes long ago. On the dim flight of stairs, Chu Hen's figure was alone. The healing power of the immortal talisman spirit tree caused a wisp of green light to appear around his body. The injured tendons and meridians in his body were gradually recovering, and the circulation of his true yuan was clearly much smoother. However, the injury on his chest was still releasing pain. Chu Hen gritted his teeth, and sweat seeped out of his forehead. Helianchi, this debt, I will definitely return it to you with interest. In such a spacious and empty place, only the sound of Chu Hen's light footsteps could be heard. One step after another was stepped on by his feet. Time passed by minute by minute. The huge flight of stairs that was like a stairway to heaven gradually came to an end, getting closer and closer. Behind him, it was getting darker and darker. Chu Hen seemed to have walked out from an ancient abyss, climbing to the top step by step. The moment he reached the last step, the scene in front of Chu Hen suddenly became clear. Even his pupils faintly trembled. A majestic and imposing palace was the first to come into view. The ancient palace was like a god, emitting a frightening holy aura. The chaotic sky above seemed to have a mysterious holy light sprinkling down, like the reflection of a spring of light, soaking the palace like a shrine. The doors of the palace were tightly shut. The stone pillars on both sides of the flight of stairs stood side by side, extending all the way to the field in front of Chu Hen. Every stone pillar was hundreds of feet tall, and on them were engraved complicated, mysterious patterns, as if it was a masterpiece meticulously carved by the skilled craftsmen of ancient times. However, in front of this ancient palace that caused people to feel awe and reverence, there were actually many corpses lying on the ground. With much caution and reverence, Chu Hen approached. The surrounding corpses fell to the ground in various postures. Some were pierced through by spears and sharp swords. Some had their bones shattered. Other than human bones, there were also many demonic beasts. There were even corpses that were as beautiful as crystals, shining brightly. This was also a battlefield 10,000 years ago. Chu Hen murmured softly. It was hard to imagine. What kind of heroic war could cause such a large-scale outbreak of the outbreak? Looking at the unknown corpses on the ground, there might have been some amazing, powerful people when they were alive, but now they could only be buried here, accompanying the dust. He carefully approached the palace in front of him. Looking up, the huge palace revealed invisible pressure. Then, from the corner of Chu Hen's eyes, he inadvertently swept his gaze over a human skeleton. The skeleton was leaning against a stone pillar. To Chu Hen's surprise, compared to the other skeletons, this skeleton was more complete, and even the clothes on the body were newer. Strange. Chu Hen frowned slightly, a little puzzled. But it was only a little newer, and the empty eye sockets of the skeleton were dark and lifeless. Then, Chu Hen's eyes looked at the ancient palace in front of him again. His eyes suddenly lit up. An array of light flashed in his mind. Could this be the Fortune Emperor Palace's inner palace? The sudden thought made Chu Hen clench his fists, and there was an unconcealable emotion in his eyes. If that was the case, it could be considered a blessing in disguise. However, the palace's doors were tightly shut, and it was unknown whether they could be opened or not. After calming his agitated emotions, Chu Hen walked up the steps in front of the palace. An invisible rhythm rose in the air, trying to stop Chu Hen on the spot. Under the interference of the pressure, Chu Hen reached the door and lightly touched the door with his fingertips. The unique coolness of the stone walls rippled through his skin. Looking closely, he could see that the palace door was engraved with many mysterious characters. The gap in the middle was so small that it was almost negligible. There was not the slightest airflow. Chu Hen tried to push the door open with his palm, but it was to no avail. No matter how much true essence force he used, it felt like a weak force entering the sea. After some observation, Chu Hen did not find any effective clues. Thinking about it, he could only use brute force to break it open. Following that, Chu Hen retreated more than 10 meters. Formless, just as he was about to summon the formless Emperor Blade, he remembered that the divine artifact had been taken away by Helianchi, killing and robbing. Thinking of what happened before, Chu Hen's face turned cold. Letting out a deep breath, Chu Hen's palms faced each other. Buzz! A strong and powerful energy swept out. Countless beautiful and dazzling silver rays of light followed along his arms and lingered around. The bright tassels quickly gathered in his palms, and then turned into a rhombus-shaped energy body. Magnificent Star Jade. Under the circumstances of losing the formless Emperor Blade, the magnificent Star Jade that Chu Hen condensed was very offensive. At least in terms of penetrating power, it was absolutely not inferior to the sharpness of a divine artifact. Chi-Chi. At the same time, a purple electric light interweaved and flowed along the light into the magnificent Star Jade. Go, Chu Hen shouted. Along with the sound of the air being torn apart, 9 magnificent Star Jade, entwined with tens of thousands of electric lights, instantly shot out from Chu Hen's palms. In the process of moving, the 9 magnificent Star Jade quickly merged into one and immediately turned into a complete large rhombus-shaped energy body. A narrow and bright optical fiber was dragged out in the air. The distance between the palace and it was crossed in an instant. Bang! A heavy and violent explosion sounded. The magnificent Star Jade, flickering with the light of thunder and lightning, solidly hit the palace's door. A dazzling light blossomed. A vast halo of aftershock immediately swept out, and the biting cold astral wind stacked up, causing the space to distort. However, under such a powerful attack, the door did not move in the slightest, and not even the slightest trace appeared. Although he had guessed that it would not be easy, but he did not expect it to be like this. The chaotic airflow wantonly surged, and Chu Hen's eyes were full of seriousness. And at this moment, a weak voice came from not far behind Chu Hen without any warning. Star, go seal. Hearing the voice, Chu Hen turned around abruptly and saw a withered skeleton standing up from the ground, staring straight at him. Please remember this book's domain name. Come. Wonderful Book House mobile version. Calm. Chapter 1402. 1 second to remember. Wonderful pop-up window. Free reading. Star battle seal. The low and weak voice was mixed with dry, creaking sounds, as if dry branches were rubbing against each other. When Chu Hen heard the voice, he turned around abruptly, and his pupils shrank to the size of a needle. What he saw was a withered skeleton. What the hell? The sudden scene almost made Chu Hen's scalp go numb. A skeleton without any flesh and blood was standing in front of him, staring straight at him with a pair of empty eye sockets. It was simply dreamy and strange, especially when one was caught off guard. It could definitely scare someone to death. What are you? Chu Hen subconsciously took a few steps back, and a cold light flickered in his eyes. Lightning power bloomed in his palm. Young man, don't be nervous. The skeleton stretched out its withered palm and cracked its head, producing a crisp kacha sound. I'm still alive. Alive? The corner of Chu Hen's eyes twitched. This thing did not look like a living person at all. You're a martial ancestor disciple, right? The skeleton continued. The corner of Chu Hen's eyes narrowed, and a look of surprise appeared on his face. How did you know? Very quickly, Chu Hen reacted. The skeleton seemed to have said star battle seal. In other words, not only did the skeleton know about martial ancestor, it also recognized the North Star art. But this was even stranger. Chu Hen's gaze swept across the other skeletons on the ground. This was an ancient ruin from 10,000 years ago, and the Fortune Emperor Palace's inner palace had never been opened. Every skeleton here had existed for tens of thousands of years. But the martial ancestor's history was only a short 1,000 years. With such a huge time difference in front of him, the skeleton actually knew Chu Hen's identity. It was naturally shocking. Immediately after, the other party's next sentence once again made Chu Hen feel even more surprised. Of course I know, because the North Star art that you cultivate was personally modified by me. What? The moment the skeleton said that, Chu Hen felt a loud boom in his head, and a huge wave rose in his heart. You're the old monkey? Huh? The skeleton was clearly stunned for a moment. Its withered hand even scratched the back of its head. It had to be admitted that the appearance of a skeleton scratching its head was a little comical. Old monkey, after all these years, does the martial sect still have my legend? The atmosphere became much more relaxed. Chu Hen raised his eyebrows, his eyes filled with surprise. Are you really senior monkey? Ahem, am I famous? The other party asked. Chu Hen became more and more restless. He shook his head and couldn't help but laugh. It was unimaginable. It was almost like a dream. Soon after, Chu Hen let out a deep breath, and the restlessness in his heart calmed down a little. Senior old monkey, I am Chu Hen, a new disciple who entered the martial sect last year. Later, I stayed in your cave abode and accidentally found the North Star art that you left on the wall. Chu Hen cupped his fist and said, although the North Star art was a secret book of the martial sect, if it wasn't for the old monkey, Chu Hen might not have had the opportunity to learn this martial art. From a certain point of view, Chu Hen could be considered to have received some teaching from the other party. Newcomer? The other party couldn't help but be surprised. Has the martial sect become so strong now? A newcomer is close to the Fourth Order Saint King realm. Even that old boy Dongfang Hung Ji is far behind you at this age. It's really surprising. When the other party mentioned the name Dongfang Hung Ji, his tone didn't change much. Obviously, in the eyes of the old monkey, the sect master of the martial sect didn't feel much respect. He paused for a moment before he continued. You can be considered to be lucky to be able to crawl out of the Dian River of calamity cleansing after suffering such heavy injuries. Thinking back all those years ago, I almost died. Chu Hen furrowed his brows and swept his gaze over the other party. The withered skeleton was covered with a layer of ragged clothes, and he still couldn't feel any fluctuation of life aura from the whole body. He couldn't help but ask curiously, Senior, you look like this. Could it be that you were swallowed in the purifying disaster river? Oh, that's not. The other party waved his skeletal palms, and there was a scraping sound between the bones. It's just too boring to be trapped here. I can't go in, and I can't leave, so I simply sank into a state of suspended animation. This appearance can keep me for thousands of years without being consumed. After saying that, two candle-like lights suddenly rose from the other party's hollow eye sockets. At the same time, a powerful life force spread out like a spring. Under Chu Hen's slightly astonished gaze, the inside and outside of the skeleton were actually surrounded by clear lines of light. The optical fiber intertwined outside the bones, turning into muscles and blood. Soon, the other party's body quickly became full, and the ragged clothes were also propped up. Buzz, a brilliant golden light flashed, and Chu Hen's eyes flashed. The skeleton just now suddenly disappeared, and in its place was a thin and weak figure. On the surface, the other party seemed to be not much older than Chu Hen. With a pointed face and round eyes, and the ragged clothes on his body, he did indeed look a little like a sneaky, skinny monkey. Don't stare at my face and get distracted, although I'm more than a little more handsome than you. The other party smiled slyly and straightened his ragged clothes. Chu Hen was instantly speechless, and the dignity and demeanor of the word senior immediately disappeared completely. This person in front of him actually improved the North Star mantra, and even locked a spirit vein in the mountain under his cave abode. Chu Hen was very doubtful. Why don't you change back to your previous appearance? Chu Hen said. Why? Did I surprise you? The old Een monkey asked. Chu Hen only felt a little uneasy. In his opinion, the old Een monkey should be the kind of proud and aloof genius that was unwilling to be associated with others, calm and reserved and disdainful of interacting with others. Now, it seemed that the other party was indeed quite disgusting. The person was like his name. Wait! Chu Hen suddenly thought of something, and he stared at the old Een monkey. You said that you can't get out of here? Don't you want to talk nonsense? If I could get out, this daddy would still be lying here pretending to be dead. Sternness immediately filled Chu Hen's face. He turned back to look at the peerless Fortune Emperor Palace behind him, which was like a temple. Then, he took a step forward and ran down the long path that he had come from. At the end of the path, there was a stairway that extended all the way to the Emperor Cleansing Adversity River. The calm Emperor Cleansing Adversity River surged with a gloomy light, as if it was drowning. Since you can come in, you can also go out, Chu Hen said solemnly. In, that's the logic. The old Een monkey pecked his head and curled his lips. I've been here for a few years, but I just can't get out. Every time, I would jump into the river, and in less than half an hour, I would either break my arm or my leg. About a year later, I gave up because there's only a one-way transmission channel. One-way transmission channel. Chu Hen understood the meaning of this sentence very well. For example, he was with Yi Yao previously, but because of the one-way transmission channel, they entered the Fortune Emperor Palace's outer palace and could not use the same method to return. No, I have to try. A trace of determination flashed in Chu Hen's eyes. Save it. It's good enough that you can keep your life. If you jump down again, you might not be as lucky as before. The old Een monkey was well aware of how terrifying the Emperor Cleansing Adversity River was. After all, he had tried it countless times. It could be seen that the old Een monkey, who had been trapped here for so many years, was extremely bored. It was not easy to find someone to accompany him, and he would not watch helplessly as the other party died. However, there was no way for Chu Hen to calm down. He looked at the old Een monkey's eyes and asked solemnly, Is there no other way out? Of course there is. The old Een monkey snapped his fingers and turned around. The only way out is inside. Chu Hen's pupils trembled slightly. Following the old Een monkey's finger, the majestic ancient palace seemed to be bathed in dense divine light. It exuded a powerful respect that originated from the desolate era. Chapter 1403. The only way out is over there. Following the direction the old Een monkey was pointing, Chu Hen turned around to look. At the end of the long corridor was an ancient palace bathed in dense Genesis chi. It was majestic, and every inch and corner exuded an unparalleled ancient aura. An inexplicable sense of awe rose in Chu Hen's heart. Where's that? The corners of Chu Hen's eyes narrowed slightly. Inner palace. The inner palace of the Fortune Emperor Palace. The old monkey's answer directly verified Chu Hen's previous guess. Compared to the numerous ancient stone statues in the outer palace, the magnificent palace in front of them truly gave off the feeling of an emperor palace. How can I get in? Chu Hen asked. The old monkey spread out his hands. I haven't thought of a way yet. Chu Hen frowned and couldn't help feeling a little angry. What are you talking about if you don't have a way? You only asked me if there was a way out, and I said there was. I didn't say I could take you out. If I could leave, would I need to pretend to be a ghost to scare people? The old monkey indifferently shook his head. After all, he had been trapped here for so many years, and he could see that the other party's mentality had already stabilized. In comparison, Chu Hen was clearly much more anxious. There were still many things he needed to do outside. He couldn't be trapped here forever. No, I must get out. Chu Hen clenched his fists, and a ball of manic and powerful lightning bolted out from his body again. The powerful lightning's snake-like power was like a long tongue, very fierce and swift. The old monkey disdainfully rolled his eyes at Chu Hen. Save it. If you want to forcibly break open the palace gate, I suggest you jump into the pure disaster river and find another way out. That's a little more realistic. Chu Hen coldly glanced at the other party. With a thought, he turned into a lightning beam and shot towards the gate of the Emperor Palace. Boom! Bang! A series of powerful collisions erupted, and all kinds of violent energy skills exploded, hitting the giant door of the Imperial Palace. The vast and vigorous offensive was like a raging tsunami, and Chu Hen kept increasing his strength. Circles of chaotic energy ripples directly stirred up a storm between heaven and earth. However, the Emperor Palace was like an immovable mountain. It didn't budge at all, and the huge gate didn't even have the slightest opening. Old Monkey leaned against a stone pillar on the side of the walkway, his arms crossed in front of him, looking at the ferocious Chu Hen with a somewhat amused expression. Where did the martial sect find such a person? Even the War God Palace and the Emperor Grand Palace would fight for such a shocking, innate talent. Duan Ling Tian's expression darkened. As he muttered to himself, the old monkey held his chin, and there was a hint of surprise in his eyes. In the blink of an eye, half an hour had passed. After a series of indiscriminate attacks on the Emperor Palace, Chu Hen, who was already injured, was immediately exhausted. Looking at the still closed and incomparably intact door of the Emperor Palace, Chu Hen felt even more frustrated. He then lay on the ground, gasping for breath. Hee, is it fun? If you don't listen to the old, you will suffer. The old monkey's despicable appearance reflected in Chu Hen's eyes. At this moment, Chu Hen didn't even have the mood to pay attention to him. He turned around and turned his back. Old monkey did not feel awkward at all. He minded his own business and sat down not far from Chu Hen. Young man, don't be so vexed. Look at me, I've been trapped for so long, but I'm still fine. Speaking of which, how did you get here? Don't bother me. Chu Hen replied coldly. He immediately closed his eyes, and the true essence in his body flowed, continuing to heal his injuries and gradually recovering his physical strength. Since he couldn't enter the Emperor Palace, he could only find an exit from the bottom of the Dian River of Adversity. After he recovered, Chu Hen wanted to return the way he came. This young man is really rude. Just now he called me senior, and now he thinks I'm meddlesome. There's no justice in this world. The old monkey shook his head and sighed. Chu Hen didn't find it funny. At this juncture, how could he still have the mood to chat with the other party? Young man, you haven't answered me yet. The old monkey didn't let it go. Answer what? How did you come here? I was beaten down by someone. Are you satisfied? Oh, there are a lot of people outside. What else? How long have you been here? You don't even know about the Holy War? Is that so? So the Holy War has already begun. The old monkey's tone clearly changed. It seemed to be rueful and a bit self-deprecating. It seems that it must be very lively outside. It's a pity that I haven't seen the sky outside for a long time. After a few simple words, the old monkey's mood actually became much gloomier. The other party had a disapproving look on the surface, but in reality, his desire to escape was no less than Chu Hen's. "Why are you here?" Chu Hen asked. "The people of the martial sect said that you have been missing for so many years and have not returned. They are most likely dead." TCH, a group of ordinary people. A small temple like the martial sect cannot accommodate a great Buddha like me. That's right. The martial sect cannot accommodate you. So you came here to guard the door for the great Emperor Fortune. Hey, didn't the heavens see that I'm lonely, so they sent you here? Coincidentally, we are from the same sect. The other party's words made Chu Hen choose to be a quiet, handsome man. There was no meaning in talking to the other party. What? You don't believe me? To tell the truth, at this point, there is no need for me to lie to you. I did not go to the martial sect to learn. The old monkey said. Chu Hen moved a bit further away, completely unwilling to pay attention to him. The old monkey did not care about the other party's mood. After many years of not being able to find someone to talk to, he directly turned into a chatterbox. To think that my heavenly mystery palace's 97th generation successor is proficient in all kinds of strange and mysterious techniques, grasps many profound and remarkable abilities. I know the heavens above, the earth below, and ancient and modern secret techniques. I had already entered the Chaos Devil domain long before your holy war began. So you're saying that the reason you left without saying goodbye back then was because you ran here? Chu Hen casually replied. That's right. Then why did you go to the martial sect? That small temple cannot accommodate a great Buddha like you. Of course there is a purpose. The old monkey paused, then continued. I went to the martial sect to find the key to open this place, madman. Chu Hen cursed in his heart. The martial sect only had a few thousand years of history, while the Fortune Emperor Palace had more than 10,000 years of history. The two could not fight for 8 lifetimes, and the martial sect still had the key to open this place. Chu Hen directly treated the other party as nonsense. The old monkey was still talking to himself. In this life, I like to explore all kinds of dangerous places, especially the gods left behind from ancient times. A long time ago, I came to the Chaos Devil domain and did a lot of research on the Fortune Emperor Palace. Through countless ancient documents, I came to the conclusion that the Fortune Emperor Palace, which had been sealed for 10,000 years, could in fact be opened, but I needed the key. Later, I searched almost half of the Midland. I went to first-rank sects, aristocratic forces, holy races, and so on. I even stayed for a long time in the War God Palace and the Grand Emperor Hall, but there was no harvest. But I never thought that the martial sect, the second-rate sect, would actually find what I wanted. At this point, the old monkey's voice became slightly higher. But then he sighed, "What a pity. It's still useless. I only found half of the key, not enough to help me open the Fortune Emperor Palace's door." As soon as the old monkey said this, Chu Hen suddenly opened his eyes, sat up, and stared fixedly at the old monkey's pale face. "Did you take something from the Starry Dream Realm?" Starry Dream Realm. Sect Master Dongfang Hengji spent many years of painstaking effort using the time wheel as the cornerstone to create a cultivation place similar to an illusory realm. It was also because of a miraculous item like the Starry Dream Realm that the martial sect did not fall because of the heavy losses they suffered during the last holy war. That's right, the old monkey readily admitted, and continued, "That is what I'm looking for." Chu Hen's heartstrings trembled. He was shocked. You mean that half of the stone is the key to open the Fortune Emperor Palace?" Listening to the other party's trembling voice, the old monkey could not help but narrow his eyes and ask suspiciously, "How do you know that is half of the stone?" The old monkey had left the martial sect for many years, especially since no one in the martial sect knew that half of the stone. But the young man in front of him seemed to know a lot of things he had done. Chu Hen laughed. He laughed especially excitedly. "Ha ha, the heavens do not want me to die." With that, Chu Hen moved his palm, and a soft white light was released. Wah! The air trembled, and a strange object with black lines appeared in Chu Hen's hand. In the next moment, The old monkey's pupils shrank to the size of a needle. This is Chapter 1404. This is a white light flashed. When he saw the item in Chu Hen's palm, the old monkey's pupils immediately shrank to the size of a needle. His expression changed drastically, and his trembling eyes were filled with disbelief. You? How could you? It could be seen that the old monkey's frail body was trembling slightly. He saw that the item in Chu Hen's hand was a hemispherical stone. At first glance, this stone looked very ordinary. Even if it was thrown on the side of the road, no one would give it a second glance. However, if one looked closely, they would find that the surface of the stone was densely covered with many obscure and strange patterns. And those patterns were especially rare. Even Chu Hen did not know a thing or two about them. Phew! Letting out a long breath, the old monkey squinted his eyes and looked at Chu Hen in front of him with surprise. If that was the case, then it made sense. Why would this young man, whom he had never met, know about what he had done in the martial sect in the past? Where did you get this half of the Kuan Ding stone? The old monkey asked in a deep voice. Kuan Ding stone? Chu Hen was slightly startled. Was that the name of this item? Then he raised his gaze and replied without hesitation. Quiet Ridge. Back then, I sent a friend of mine back to her ancestral butterfly race. On the way, we passed by the Quiet Ridge and accidentally obtained this item. Quiet Ridge. The old monkey was somewhat surprised. I know that place. It is a place of extreme It is said that there are countless vengeful ancient carrion creatures there. I did not expect that the fragment of the Kuan Ding stone would be left there. Chu Hen nodded slightly. The Kuan Ding stone that he had obtained was hidden in the head of an ancient corpse in the lake. It was also because the power of his sword was blocked by the object in the ancient corpse's head that he felt that this item was unusual. If this hemispherical stone was thrown somewhere in the Quiet Ridge or on the side of the road, Chu Hen would not even look at it. It was as if it was fated. The two meeting points that had been separated for many years actually collided here. AI. However, at this time, old monkey sighed helplessly. What a pity. Unfortunately. What's a pity? Chu Hen frowned slightly. It's a pity that I thought I wouldn't be able to get out, so I threw the other half of the Kuan stabilizing stone into the Dian's purifying adversity river. F*CK. As soon as he said that, Chu Hen's eyes widened and he jumped up in anger. He didn't care whether the other party was a senior or not and was about to curse. But before he could say anything, the old monkey's face had a lowly smile. Chu Hen immediately understood. Old man, you lied to me. Young people really don't have a sense of humor. I'm just teasing you. Old monkey replied with a smile. Chu Hen held his forehead and breathed a sigh of relief. You almost scared me to death. I told you that you shouldn't. You spent so many years to find it. How can you just throw it away like that? Not necessarily. Old monkey shrugged. I did throw it away, but I fished it back from the river. Where is it? This. With that, old monkey also stood up. His eyes flashed, and he raised his hand. Hua! A ray of light flashed, and a strange stone that was almost exactly the same as the one in Chu Hen's hand suddenly appeared in his hand. The two looked at each other and couldn't help but understand. Then, the two of them each extended the other half of the Kuan stabilizing stone. It was as if a historical moment had begun. The two pieces of the Kuan stabilizing stone were like a star stone. The moment the two intersected, a melodious ancient battle song faintly resounded between the heaven and earth. Whoom! Then a beam of brilliant light bloomed from the center of the Kuan stabilizing stone. Wind and waves rose, and the chi tide rose to the sky. A vast and majestic glowing cyclone rapidly revolved around Chu Hen and old monkey. Above the two of them, a nebula surged. The dazzling flowing light circled around the gap in the middle of the Kuan stabilizing stone. In an instant, the two pieces of the Kuan stabilizing stone merged into one and emitted a bright light. Hua! Along with the trembling space and stirring air currents in all directions, Chu Hen and old monkey's clothes fluttered in the wind. The ancient battle song that resounded between the heaven and earth became even more powerful and loud. Show! The Kuan stabilizing stone in the hands of the two of them directly flew out. Like a meteor that shuttled through the vast star field, it flew toward the majestic palace in front of them. Bang! A circle of heavy and mighty light ripples swept out. The Kuan stabilizing stone that was emitting a divine light firmly struck the center of the two giant doors of the palace. Innumerable strands of light then covered the entire palace. One after another, mysterious and ancient inscriptions appeared on both sides of the door. The ancient restriction that had been sealed for tens of thousands of years was finally shaken. For example, the godlike palace of the great emperor trembled for the first time. At this moment, Chu Hen and old Een Monkey's expressions were filled with unprecedented nervousness. The two of them stared fixedly at the door of the imperial palace, motionless. It was like the friction between rocks or the collision of stone slabs. Under their unblinking gaze, a circular groove appeared in the center of the palace door at a speed that could be seen by the naked eye. The Kuan stabilizing stone, which was surrounded by luxurious multicolored light, slowly merged into the groove like a pearl embedded in it. Show! A beam of dazzling light penetrated the gap in the middle of the palace door. Then, the gap gradually widened, and with a heavy sound, the door of the Fortune Emperor Palace was slowly pushed inwards. Crash! A strong, ancient aura rushed toward him. The battle song that rose high between heaven and earth made one's heart palpitate with boundless respect. At the foot of the palace steps, the withered, ancient skeletons on both sides of the road shattered in an instant, turning into dust and ashes that filled the sky. Looking at the open palace door, old Een Monkey clenched his fists, incomparably excited. In comparison, although Chu Hen was also extremely excited, he was far less moved than old Een Monkey. After all, he had been trapped here for many years. Let's go. Without the slightest hesitation, the two of them flashed into the Emperor Palace. The moment they entered the Emperor Palace, their eyes were immediately filled with a series of luxurious sights. If the Fortune Emperor Palace looked grand and majestic from the outside, then the inside could be said to be extremely luxurious. Even the dazzling imperial palaces in the outside world could not compare to 1,000th of the Fortune Emperor Palace. As expected of the Fortune Emperor Palace, it's so grand. Chu Hen sighed sincerely. Grand is grand, but it can't be considered the best in the world. Old Een Monkey was still quite calm. He directly walked into the inner area of the palace, and Chu Hen quickly followed. Looking around, on both sides of the palace, there were many glowing items floating in the air. There were weapons that emitted a sharp aura, mysterious ancient scrolls, as well as containers that contained unknown medicinal pills. Finally, this treasure trove is opened. Old Een Monkey's eyes shone brightly. Ha, young man, I really have to thank you this time. With that said, Old Een Monkey stepped forward to collect the ancient inheritances floating above the palace. Chu Hen's heart was moved. One could imagine that the things that could be stored in the inner area of the Fortune Emperor Palace were all divine weapons, holy pills, and elixirs. Any one of the things here, if placed outside, would be a peerless treasure that would be fought over by tens of thousands of people. Right at this time, Chu Hen caught a glimpse of something from the corner of his eye. His attention was actually attracted by a throne at the top of the hall. Other than the domineering aura, there was an indescribable, strange power on that throne. This strange power was like an invisible hand, pulling Chu Hen's gaze. Not knowing why, Chu Hen felt that there was a certain aura in his body that was attracting him. Driven by curiosity, Chu Hen did not pay attention to the old Een Monkey, who was not far away. Instead, he walked towards the throne by himself. As if he was involuntarily taking a step forward, he walked towards the throne. Phew! Waves rose without wind. When Huang Xiaolong stood in front of the throne, a piercingly cold airflow swept out. Immediately after, a golden whirlpool revolved around the throne. The light whirlpool rotated slowly, like a whirlpool. In an instant, a certain power in Chu Hen's body became more active, as if it had received a strange summon. Chu Hen subconsciously reached out to the light whirlpool. Buzz, the moment his hand touched the light whirlpool, a strong spatial fluctuation immediately spread out, causing the plane to distort and the universe to spin. Chu Hen felt a strong pulling force, and in the next second, he disappeared from the spot. The old monkey, who was on the other side of the hall, heard the commotion and turned to look, revealing a surprised expression. Where's he? Rumble. As if being swept into a collapsing doomsday, the peace of the previous second disappeared. Thunder roared, and the wind howled. In the blink of an eye, Chu Hen, who was still in the hall, entered a new world that he had never seen before. What entered his eyes seemed to be an unopened, chaotic universe. Under his feet was a stone bridge, and above and below the bridge was the boundless dark starfield. Where am I? Chu Hen was surprised and bewildered, his face full of confusion. After a short moment of bewilderment, Chu Hen walked towards the front of the stone bridge. The wide stone bridge seemed to be fixed in the void, without any support. Chu Hen's figure gradually merged into the hazy darkness, crossing the stone bridge alone, heading towards the depths of this boundless, chaotic universe. The dim haze was gradually pulled apart. The end of the stone bridge appeared in front of him. The moment he reached the end of the stone bridge, Chu Hen's pupils violently trembled. What appeared in front of him was a world-shaking scene. Buzz, it was an incomparably magnificent stone statue of a giant. It was like an ancient god hidden in the endless chaotic universe. Compared to it, Chu Hen was as small and pitiful as an ant. The stone statue gently closed its eyes, sitting in the void. Dense, soft light adhered to the surface of the stone statue, glowing with a mysterious dim light. It was like a dream. Looking at the giant stone statue in front of him, Chu Hen felt like he was floating in the endless universe. His heart was filled with boundless reverence. Buzz! Suddenly, the stars moved, and the heavens and earth trembled. The giant stone statue in front of Chu Hen suddenly opened its eyes, and a majestic aura like that of an ancient god shrouded him. The eyes that emitted divine light were like the stars, like the sun and moon. The thunderous aura exploded in the sky. Creation Palm, Chaos Galaxy. Immeasurable sword kills the world. Please remember the domain name of this book. Come. Wonderful Book House mobile version. Come. Chapter 1405. The Palm of Fortune disrupts the galaxy. The limitless sword kills the world. It exuded a majestic and domineering aura, as if it came from an ancient god. Chaotic galaxy, vast sea of smoke. Chu Hen, who stood at the end of the stone bridge, felt his mind and soul tremble. The giant stone statue in front of him suddenly opened its eyes, and an incomparably majestic aura enveloped him. Divine light erupted, covering the sky like the eternal sun, moon, and stars in the universe. At this moment, Chu Hen was as small as a speck of dust in the endless galaxy. Standing in front of the ancient stone statue, he felt an indescribable sense of awe. His eyes stared at the giant stone statue's huge body, and his pupils trembled. He couldn't help but want to kneel down and submit. An invisible and enormous ancient majesty gathered on Chu Hen's body. Chu Hen's knees involuntarily bent. Submit. A kind of subservience thought made Chu Hen kneel respectfully in front of him. However, Chu Hen stubbornly withstood this pressure. His subconscious instinctively carried a bit of resistance. The more Chu Hen resisted, the more powerful the invisible became. It seemed as if it wouldn't stop until it crushed Chu Hen. Buzz, a majestic and melodious battle song, faintly echoed between heaven and earth. Thousands of nebulae moved in the sky. Countless boundless stars spun in the chaotic universe. The giant stone statue erupted with an increasingly powerful and shocking divine aura, like a god descending to the world. What a shocking emperor intent! In the middle of the stone bridge, about 100 meters behind Chu Hen, old monkey's eyes trembled, and he couldn't help but be moved. looking at the back of Chu Hen, who was almost unable to move, as well as the imposing giant stone statue. Old Een Monkey's brows were filled with admiration and reverence. After 10,000 years, great Emperor Fortune's majesty is still so powerful. Boom! Suddenly, right at this moment, the sky rumbled with lightning, and then a terrifying storm of lightning suddenly swept out from above the chaotic universe. Accompanied by a primordial chaotic airflow, the surrounding space violently twisted and swayed, only to see the giant stone statue standing in the middle of the chaotic starry sky, emitting endless dreamy light. In an instant, the giant seemed to come to life, and its huge body trembled. The millions of chaotic stars were like a rotating galaxy whirlpool. The giant stone statue actually stretched out its godlike hand and enveloped Chu Hen. Chaos gives birth to heaven and earth. All things are created. The heavy and deafening sounds seemed to come from all directions. Chu Hen's pupils constricted. Behind him, the old Een Monkey's eyes widened. The giant stone statue's hand continued to press down on Chu Hen, like a towering mountain pressing down on him. Following that, a majestic and awe-inspiring aura penetrated into the depths of the two souls. I am creation. I am creation. I am fortune. I'm all things. At this moment, Chu Hen's consciousness couldn't help but become blurry and confused. He seemed to see a mysterious figure that looked down on all things in the world, a figure that shook the ancients and dazzled the contemporaries. Not knowing what to do, Chu Hen stood motionless on the spot, as if he didn't see the giant hand that was rapidly descending. Does this guy want to die? The old Een Monkey's expression changed. After speaking, his figure flashed, and he quickly rushed towards Chu Hen. However, before the old Een Monkey could get close to Chu Hen, the stone bridge under his feet suddenly burst open, and a stone pillar shot out from under him. The old Een Monkey's pupils constricted. In the next second, the stone bridge under Chu Hen's feet directly shattered into pieces. That godlike, giant stone statue's hand had already pressed down in front of him. However, at this moment, the moment the stones exploded, a black shadow that emitted a monstrous fiend god aura suddenly appeared behind Chu Hen. Buzz! A supreme, domineering aura rose, and a vast circle of black light swept out. That is, the old Een Monkey's expression changed again and again. Before he could react, a fierce wind rippled out. The old Een Monkey was sent flying back along with the stream of rubble that was recklessly spilling out. The black shadow that suddenly appeared behind Chu Hen instantly grew to 100 feet tall, demonic body. A black flame that was like the 9 underworld fire rose up, enveloping Chu Hen's body. The giant stone hand that was pressing down on Chu Hen also firmly stopped in the air. The black illusory figure and the majestic stone giant were like 2 primordial fiend gods that blotted out the sky. He actually blocked it? The old Een Monkey's face could be said to be full of disbelief. At this moment, in his eyes, the young figure in the middle of the 2 gigantic creatures had become extremely mysterious. Just who was this person? Meanwhile, Chu Hen's state was becoming more and more mysterious. He gently closed his eyes and did not move at all, but it was as if he had entered the void. In the hazy and chaotic world, the long rainbow bridge flickered with golden light. At the end of the long bridge that led straight to the sky, there seemed to be a blurry figure with his back facing him. The subconscious in his heart made Chu Hen advance forward. Step by step, Chu Hen stepped on a rainbow bridge that was overflowing with light, constantly approaching that figure. The blurry figure gradually became clear, but it was not clear. It was a tall and sturdy figure, heroic and tall, with an imposing manner that looked down on the world. Hey, young man, on the other end of the broken stone bridge, the old Een Monkey tried to call out. But before the other party could finish speaking, there was a buzz. Sound, the space trembled, and Chu Hen, who was surrounded by thousands of black flames, suddenly opened his eyes. At the same time, there was a long and ancient domineering aura that spread out from his body. This aura is... The old Een Monkey clenched his fists, and before he could recover from the shock, the giant stone statue's big hand that was reaching for Chu Hen retracted, and at the same time, the pair of eyes that were as bright as the sea of stars bloomed with endless divine splendor. Light patterns sprinkled down like a tide, and Chu Hen's figure immediately merged into it. In the blink of an eye, only the giant black figure was left. Rumble, the wind and clouds rose and the stars changed. Following that, the infinitely vast nebula gathered between heaven and earth was stirred, and the giant stone statue actually began to rotate in the chaotic space that had not yet been divided. Buzz, buzz. At the same time, the distorted space tore open countless dark cracks and swallowed holes. Thousands of strands of dark blue cyclones floated out of the densely packed cracks in the space. Di Yinjing Qi. The corners of the old Yin monkey's eyes narrowed, revealing a look of astonishment. The floating Di Yinjing misfortune was like a spirit nurturing aura born from the heavens and earth. Under the increasingly astonished gaze of the old Yin monkey, it unceasingly converged towards the black fiend god behind Chu Hen. Looking at the scene in front of him, the old Yin monkey's expression became somewhat complicated. With his understanding of the great Emperor Zhao Hua and having stayed here for so many years, he clearly knew what the appearance of Di Yinjing Qi at this time meant. The old Yin monkey clenched his fists tighter and tighter, and even the blue veins on his knuckles could be clearly seen. A cold light, as sharp as a blade, quietly flashed across his eyes. Following that, he took a step forward, wanting to make a move. But after just taking a step forward, he stopped. His clenched fists slowly loosened, and there seemed to be a struggle in his heart. After a short pause, the old Yin monkey let out a long sigh of relief, and, at the same time, the trace of hostility in his eyes also disappeared. He smiled with a slightly self-deprecating tone. Forget it. If it wasn't for him, I'm afraid I would never see the light of day. Forget it. Let's see his fortune first. If he fails, it won't be too late for me to go up. After saying that, the old Yin monkey took a few steps back and then lazily squatted down on the broken stone bridge. The increasingly rich Di Yinjing Qi broke through the hole in the space and gathered towards the black god-fiend shadow. The dark blue cyclone floating between heaven and earth was like a dreamy galaxy, and it integrated into the black shadow with the momentum of all rivers returning to it. Looking from afar, such a majestic Di Yinjing Qi was like the mysterious light wings that grew out of the black shadow. The astonishing energy contained in the Di Yinjing Qi was especially clear as it flowed up and down, and this power would eventually be channeled into Chu Hen's body through the black shadow. Strange, what kind of bloodline boundary is this? The old Yin monkey fell into deep thought. No matter how powerful the bloodline boundary is, there's no way to perfectly fit the Di Yinjing Qi. It's really strange. The old Yin monkey could not be said to not understand the overbearing power of the Di Yinjing Qi. After all, in this world, except for the great Emperor Zhao Hua, no one could perfectly use this unique ancient power. In addition, anyone who entered the Di Yinjing Qi would more or less have a rejection reaction. But the power behind Chu Hen seemed to be trying to accommodate the power of the Di Yinjing Qi. Even the process was very smooth, and there was no state of discomfort. This phenomenon made the old Yin monkey even more surprised. As the value of the Di Yinjing Qi increased, the entire space also became a little unstable. The giant stone statue trembled uneasily, and the nebulous storm cyclone that covered the sky stirred in all directions, wanting to split this barren, chaotic universe. Seems like it's about time. The old Yin monkey's eyes became deep. This situation seemed to be within his expectations. With that, the old Yin monkey stood up and raised his head slightly. A faint smile appeared at the corner of his mouth, and there was a hint of expectation in his eyes. But in the next second, something unexpected happened again. Hua, a beam of strange and evil purple brilliance actually pierced through the vast and majestic nebulous storm, and in the void above the giant stone statue, a purple demonic flame spread out like a prairie fire. Buzz, then, under the distortion of space, thousands of strands of light intertwined, and a pair of huge purple eyes that looked like those of an ancient demon god appeared in the chaotic sky. An invisible deterrent force suppressed the entire place, and the huge purple eyes carried a divine might that looked down on the common people. In the depths of the pupils, there were 6 black dots emitting a powerful energy fluctuation. The old monkey's body trembled slightly, and his eyes were wide open. Looking at the pair of evil purple eyes, there was an indescribable fear and horror. Demon eyes. Chapter 1406. What did you say? Chu Hen is missing? Outside the tomb of the great Emperor of Fortune, there was a huge sky pit, revealing an ancient and mysterious aura. The sky pit was thousands of feet deep, and there was a huge ancient stone statue sitting inside, like an ancient god guarding this place. At this moment, at the edge of the sky pit, Xia Qing frowned and stared at Yi Yao with a puzzled expression. Behind her were the equally puzzled Huang Fu Hao, Su Li, and the rest of the Spirit Phoenix Valley people. Yi Yao bit her red lips, her pretty face filled with worry. He lowered his head to look at Noni, the Yin-Yang beast, and sighed helplessly. Noni and I were picking the Yin-Yang grass at that time. Big brother Chu Hen was clearly standing behind us, but when we turned around, he was already gone. How long have you been separated? Xia Qing asked. It's been almost a month, Yi Yao replied. So long. Xia Qing frowned even more. Almost a month ago, she led the Spirit Phoenix Valley people to the chaotic Star Rock to open the ruins there. Because of carefree Chung, Chu Hen did not go with them, but turned around with Yi Yao. In other words, on the day they separated, Chu Hen and Yi Yao were separated. I looked for a long time inside, but I could not find Brother Chu Hen. I thought he would definitely come out, so I waited here for him, but don't be anxious. Xia Qing comforted Yi Yao. Since you have been waiting here for so long, he must still be inside. Then, she turned to the side and said to Su Li and the rest of the Spirit Phoenix Valley disciples, Senior Su Li, can I trouble you to bring some people inside to help find Chu Hen's whereabouts? Yes. Su Li nodded in agreement. As for the other disciples, they could not help but reveal a lazy expression. Really, the Tomb of Fortune is so big. Where can we find such a person? What are you doing? He's not from our Spirit Phoenix Valley. The crowd whispered in the back, obviously dissatisfied. Because of Xiao Yao Chung, in the eyes of the Spirit Phoenix Valley disciples, Chu Hen was particularly unlikable. Although the tomb in front of them was Great Emperor Zhao Hua's tomb, and they could still explore it with the excuse of looking for someone, the ruins had already been open for a long time. Most likely, all the treasures and inheritances inside had already been taken away, so no one was willing to enter. Su Li frowned and turned around to reprimand him. Why are you talking so much? Leave a third of your men behind, and the rest will follow me. After all, apart from Xiao Yao Chung, Su Li was the only genius from the Spirit Phoenix Valley that was ranked on the honor list. Thus, Su Li's words were rather intimidating. Everyone immediately shut their mouths and did not say anything else. Junior Xia Qing, you should wait here for now. Once there is news, I will immediately notify you. Su Li said simply. Xia Qing nodded slightly. Thank you, Senior Apprentice Brother Su Li. It's all right. After he finished speaking, Su Li gestured to the crowd behind him and led the Spirit Phoenix Valley disciples into the giant pit below. Everyone's aura was piercingly cold. Like a flock of eagles, they flew towards the giant stone statue in the pit. The ancient stone statue was like an ancient guard that guarded this place. Its entire body swayed with complicated and mysterious talisman markings, and the beams of light shot out from its eyes fused with space to form a strange ring of light that was like a vortex of stars. From time to time, people would flash out from within the halo. What a joke. Why should I look for an outsider? That's right. If it wasn't for that person, Senior Brother Xiao Yao wouldn't have gone missing. The Spirit Phoenix Valley disciples expressed their dissatisfaction as they approached the entrance of the tomb. Boom! Suddenly, at this moment, an earth-shattering sound rang out in the sky. Everyone's heartstrings trembled as they subconsciously raised their heads to look at the void. They only saw that the vast sky was emitting layers of strange spatial rhythms. The wind blew, the clouds surged, and the nebula was like a tide. Buzz, immediately after, like the first rays of the morning sun piercing through the sky, or like an auspicious sign shuttling through the void, rays of dazzling golden light poured down from the thick and dense clouds. That is, Sue Lee and the group of Spirit Phoenix Valley disciples who had already reached the entrance suddenly stopped in their tracks. They could only see that the wind blew through the forest, the mountains trembled, and in all directions, the vast sky was filled with clouds and mist. Between the heaven and earth, there was a dreamy and long, mysterious horn sound. For example, the ancient war song that rang out. Buzz, the turbulent nine heavens released tens of thousands of rays of multicolored light. Within the multicolored light, the clouds parted, and a magnificent sky curtain that resembled a market appeared in the void. In the sky curtain, there were rows of peerlessly imposing high firmament battle platforms. The battle platforms were square and incomparably imposing. It was like an entrenched ancient palace. Roar. This. Following that, golden scales shone, dazzling to the eyes. Two gigantic phantoms rose from the east and west. One was a dragon, and the other was a python. The dragon and python faced each other, occupying the sky, emitting a powerful and imposing aura that caused people to tremble. The dragon and python have appeared. The summoning has begun. The sacred battle platform has begun. Su Li clenched his fists, and a trace of emotion appeared in the corner of his eyes. The Spirit Phoenix Valley's disciples also had a solemn expression on their faces. Holy, the sacred battle platform has begun. The final battle is about to begin. The dragon and python have appeared. The summoning has begun. The opening of the sacred battle platform indicated that the holy battle platform was about to end, and it also meant that the final battle was about to begin. The holy battle platform is about to end? Xia Qingrou's eyes glimmered, and her red lips lightly touched. Yao, who was standing at the side, was also astonished. As soon as he finished speaking, one figure after another flashed across the sky and gathered in the same direction. Fortune Emperor Palace, Outer Palace. The vast and boundless abyss was filled with dense Emperor Yenjing Qi, and the netherworld river at the bottom of the abyss was like magma flowing from the earth's core, emitting a dangerous and mysterious aura. In the abyss, there were many ancient giant stone statues standing in the middle of it. Right at this moment, circles of strange spatial fluctuations came from the outside world. The figures with powerful auras sitting on the stone statues opened their eyes one after another. This is the sacred battle platform has begun. The people who woke up got up one after another and looked at the others around them, their eyes burning with a fiery light. The holy battle platform is finally ending. Hanyan Sex Izhou breathed out deeply and muttered in a low voice, "I'm looking forward to fighting with you." An indifferent voice came from not far behind him. The 13th place on the wind cloud list, Ji Tao, stood tall and straight, and his cold temperament was like a swordsman on a rainy night. Izhou smiled and shook his head, not saying anything, even though his ranking on the wind cloud list was more than 10 ranks lower than Ji Tao's. Without replying to Ji Tao, Izhou's gaze shifted to the giant hand statue. The God-fiend stone statue, which was emitting an aura that could cover the sky, stretched out from the rock wall, displaying its divine might. The two men and one woman on top of it had already stood up. The three Saint Kings of the War God Palace, no matter where they were existences as bright as the moon and the stars. Boundless radiance. However, at this moment, the three of them were looking at the same location. On the giant sword statue that was connected to the Dian River of Misfortune, the blurry figures seemed to be shrouded in mist. It's about time, right? It should be. Dueling war god He Lianqi stroked his chin and smiled faintly. Why don't we leave first? Ji Liang suggested. Star Disparity war god Qi Qianling smiled coldly. Then let's go first, as long as you're not afraid that he will kill you. Wang. Just as he finished speaking, There was a sudden movement in all directions, and a powerful aura like that of a mountain spread out. Everyone in the abyss was shocked, and an indescribable fear quietly spread from the bottom of their hearts. What a terrifying aura! Jitao and Izhou also frowned slightly, and their eyes were fixed on the figure's back. In the distorted space, the blurry figure gradually became clearer, and the aura coming from the figure was like an invisible hand that clutched everyone's throat, making it difficult for them to breathe. This aura, I'm afraid it has reached the peak of the Ninth Order Saint King realm, Jitao exclaimed in a deep voice. Izhou also sighed helplessly. What a terrifying monster. He's only half a step away from that realm. When the next moment, a powerful dark blue whirlpool surged, and accompanied by an unparalleled monstrous aura, the figure suddenly opened its eyes, and a cold and sharp gaze revealed an aura that made people's hearts palpitate. Chapter 1407. Boundless frost and ice covered 1,000 miles. The pure white world of ice and snow was like the polar region of the world, cold and beautiful. Palaces made of ice and snow could be described as the work of the gods. The tall city towers were like beautiful jade, luxurious and luxurious. In the center of these palaces, there was a building that looked like the main palace, which was the most luxurious. Buzz! All of a sudden, at this moment, the air swirled, shaking the dome of heaven and earth. The main palace in the center of the Ice Emperor city shook violently. In a split second, countless complicated, mysterious symbols flashed inside and outside the main palace. Swoosh! As a vast and mighty cold aura surged out, the tightly shut door of the palace slowly opened inwards. The dense white ice xianqi was like a surging tsunami, and in that dense ice xianqi, a graceful and slender figure walked out. She was born with a cold temperament and exquisite facial features. She looked like a fairy from the world of ice and snow. With every step she took, a circle of snowflake-shaped ice crystals appeared under her feet. Around her, there were ice whirlpools, beautiful and unique, with a kind of unique elegance. To Long Xuan, this seclusion felt like a few centuries had passed. She slightly raised her phoenix eyes, which were as soft as water, with a circle of faint blue lines. Long Xuan's gaze swept across the horizon. Dazzling golden light sprinkled the sky, covering the sacred battle platform. The dragon and python were confronting each other. It was spectacular, like a miracle. The sacred battle was called, and the dragon and python were fighting. Sex, and races, the final battle was about to begin. At this moment, in different locations within the chaotic devil world, in the depths of the mountains and forests, in the valleys and creeks, in the ancient cities, silhouettes with sharp auras opened their eyes one after another, revealing a sharp gleam in their eyes. Geniuses, world-shocking demon-level characters. On the sacred battle platform, constellations gathered. Fortune Emperor Palace. This was a chaotic world that seemed to have been created independently. In the vast and boundless universe, stars and clouds moved, and the sun and moon moved. A giant stone statue stood in the midst of the chaos, like an ancient god that controlled this space, exuding an extraordinary divine might. In front of the stone giant, there was also a black figure that looked like a fiend god. The Di Yinjing misfortune chi that came from all directions were like several wings of light connecting to the black shadow. An extremely shocking and majestic energy circulated inside and outside the black shadow. Between the two, there was a seemingly tiny figure. That figure was slender and slightly thin, with a sharp side profile that was as cold as a sculpture. At this moment, Chu Hen seemed to have become one with this world, and he had completely fallen into a mysterious and boundless state. His breathing could cause a strange rhythm in the space around him. On the other side of the broken bridge, old Een Monkey had a complicated expression on his face. He stared meaningfully at the pair of demonic and demonic purple eyes in the sky. Every time he had the urge to move forward, the pair of demonic purple eyes would release a deterrent force that forbade him from approaching. Demon Pupil Clan. Old Monkey murmured softly, but his eyes were full of many indescribable emotions. Then, Old Monkey's gaze swept over the huge black shadow behind Chu Hen, and there was a hint of doubt on his face. Since he's a member of the Demon Pupil clan, there are two kinds of bloodlines. Buzz. Right at this moment, a powerful energy fluctuation suddenly broke the calm atmosphere that had lasted for a long time. Old Monkey's heart skipped a beat. The nebulous cyclone that shrouded all directions set off a heaven-stirring momentum, and the space where Chu Hen was immediately fell into a state of distortion. Following the formation of spatial cracks and devouring holes, an even more astonishing and frightening rhythm recklessly stacked up. With Chu Hen as the center, the vast and powerful dark blue light whirlpool became more and more intense as it tore apart the storm. He's about to break through. Old Monkey clenched his fists and subconsciously took a few steps back. Before he even finished speaking, a power that was comparable to the explosion of an inexhaustible tsunami completely burst out from within Chu Hen's body. The power that could not be suppressed was like magma that could not be suppressed. It broke through layer upon layer of shackles, broke through layer upon layer of seals, swept out in all directions, and rushed into the heavenly river. Every inch of space was rapidly distorted, and the giant stone statue in front of Chu Hen was showing thousands of long and narrow cracks at a speed visible to the naked eye. Rumble, 3,000 lightning strikes, Aurora's space split. The black demon god phantom behind Chu Hen was like a god king who controlled all things, containing the surging source force from all directions. The Emperor Yin-Jing Misfortune Chi that converged into Chu Hen's body was burning with a dark blue aura, and the momentum that erupted directly broke through the previous highest limit. Fourth Order Saint King Realm. Fifth Order Saint King Realm. Sixth Order Saint King Realm. On the broken bridge, Old Monkey's eyes narrowed, and his heart was filled with shock. He stared blankly at Chu Hen, who was breaking through one after another, in shock and awe. What kind of power is this? What kind of speed is this? What kind of world-shaking inheritance is this? Buzz. However, this was not the end. While Chu Hen's aura continued to rise, the pair of peerless monster eyes that overlooked the galaxy suddenly shone brilliantly, brighter than the sun and moon shining in the sky, and a strong power wave spread out, together with the divine might that could shock the 9 regions. The 6 black dots in the depths of the pair of pupils shook violently and slowly rotated in a clockwise direction. This is... Old Monkey's eyes widened. At this moment, he could no longer maintain the calmness he should have. Whoosh! The sky trembled, and the thousands of galaxies seemed to rotate with it. One of the 6 black dots that shook violently split into 2, and in an instant, it turned into 7 black dots. There seemed to be a sharp and rapid whistling sound in the air. The 7 black dots in the monster eyes rotated, and a circle of dense and bewitching purple light spread across the 9 heavens galaxy, like the eyes of a monster god overlooking all living things. Astonishment, shock, as well as trembling. Many complex emotions filled Old Monkey's heart. Feeling the divine might emanating from the pair of 7-star monster eyes, he felt an indescribable sense of fear. 7-star monster eyes. Old Monkey could not believe what was happening in front of him. Boom! In the next moment, the tyrannical power in Chu Hen's body once again broke through the boundary of the 6th Order Saint King realm, directly entering the 7th Order. Shock filled Old Monkey's body and mind. Along with a sharp and bizarre whistling sound, Chu Hen opened his eyes. The overlapping cyclones whistled in all directions, and the purple light in his eyes flourished. Within his deep and bewitching pupils, the ripples of energy produced by the 7 black dots caused the surrounding space to collapse and split apart. Rumble. At the same time, the giant stone statue in front of him was already covered in cracks. The cracks rapidly widened, and the huge stone statue began to collapse. Like a broken star, it rapidly disintegrated. However, right at this moment, a ray of golden light flashed out from within the collapsed and shattered stone statue. It was a humanoid phantom that was illusory and indistinct, yet its mighty figure and imposing bearing could be faintly seen. The phantom floated in front of Chu Hen. All things in the universe, the stars move, the inheritance of good fortune, and leave it to future generations. Chapter 1408. Passing on good fortune, leave it to future generations. The melodious and profound voice seemed to cross the boundless and vast star domain, passing through tens of thousands of nebula light years, and finally reached their ears. This is good fortune, great emperor. On the broken bridge, old Monkey's eyes trembled as he stared at the scene in front of him in disbelief. The illusory and faintly discernible golden figure was like a dream. His indistinct face and figure revealed a supreme, dignified bearing and the majesty of a monarch. The stacked airwaves were like a tide. Chu Hen stood in front of the golden figure, his pair of demonic purple pupils surging with an unparalleled, domineering divine might. Then, Chu Hen cupped his fists and said respectfully, "Junior Chu Hen is honored to receive the power of good fortune today. In the future, I will definitely protect Senior's reputation and live up to the great emperor's name." "Ha, good." The golden figure laughed heartily. "Merit. Wrong." With that said, the illusory and ethereal light figure was like a group of dancing fireflies, slowly dispersing in the chaotic void. The flowers of heaven and earth bloom. Demons and monsters shrink back at the sight of it. Throughout the ages, I am good fortune. I am good fortune. The powerful and distant voice seemed to float between the sun, moon, and stars, gradually fading away from Chu Hen and old Monkey's ears. The flowers of heaven and earth bloom, the words throughout the ages. Demons and monsters, all for you. Surpassing the ancients and dazzling the contemporaries, it was also good fortune. Looking at the countless scattered light specks floating in the chaotic void, Chu Hen's eyes were filled with reverence and respect. Even though he did not live in that era, he could clearly feel the great emperor's heroic spirit and grandeur. I am good fortune. When the last wisp of echo dissipated, the floating golden silhouette completely disappeared, and a majestic giant stone statue from before also collapsed in this boundless vast universe plane. Junior respectfully sends off the great emperor. Chu Hen raised his voice and shouted. An ancient battle song seemed to resound between heaven and earth. After a short period of silence and silent mourning, Chu Hen let out a deep breath of impure air. He lightly closed his eyes and then opened them again. The purple light in his pupils was like a receding tide, and his demonic eyes returned to their normal color. Then Chu Hen turned around and looked at the old Monkey on the other side of the broken bridge. He was slightly stunned. When he looked at Chu Hen, he could not help but have his expression change slightly. Compared to before, Chu Hen seemed to have undergone a great change. It was not just in terms of cultivation and aura. Even his temperament was far superior to before. Even his eyes were filled with supreme calmness and indifference. Sigh. Helpless. Old Monkey shook his head, actually wanting to cry, but having no tears. Senior, how much time has passed? Long. The air faintly trembled, and Chu Hen appeared next to old Monkey several hundred meters away, as if he had teleported. Old Monkey's eyelids drooped, looking dispirited. So unlucky. The thing I've been looking forward to for more than 10 years has been taken by you. He muttered. What? Chu Hen did not hear clearly. Old Monkey rolled his eyes again, saying, It's been more than a month. More than a month? Chu Hen was not surprised by this. On the contrary, he felt that the time was much shorter than he had expected. When he was immersed in that state, he felt as if he had traveled through several centuries. His state of mind became increasingly firm and steady under the constant tempering. That kind of unique feeling was something only Chu Hen could feel. I need to remind you that the Holy War's enlistment is about to end. Old Monkey rubbed his chin and said indifferently, Is that so? Chu Hen's eyes narrowed, and an imperceptible coldness flashed in his deep and steady eyes. Then he said, I should go. Old Monkey nodded. Yes, I've watched you for more than a month. It's time to part ways. Senior, why don't you come with me? Many of the Wu Zong disciples who came with me on this trip know you. Forget it. Old Monkey waved his hand. This Holy War's enlistment has nothing to do with me, and I've never thought of myself as a martial organization disciple. I'll go back to where I came from. Although Old Monkey had stayed in the martial organization for a period of time, he and Chu Hen were not on the same level of time. Meeting here was merely a coincidence. Old Monkey was completely an outsider to the Holy War's enlistment. Naturally, he had no reason to get involved. Chu Hen nodded slightly, but did not say anything. That's right, this is for you. Old Monkey raised his hand and a beam of light flashed. An ancient scroll appeared in his palm. Chu Hen was startled. What is this? As he asked, he curiously took the scroll from the other party's hand. A thick feeling spread through his palm. Looking at the scroll, he saw the 3 words, Essence Extraction Scripture, written on the seal. Essence Sutra? Chu Hen was even more puzzled. Old Monkey immediately explained, the martial organization's North Star art was modified by me using the Essence Sutra's method. Oh, Chu Hen raised his brows. I've studied the Essence Sutra a long time ago, but I only obtained a fragment of it. What was recorded on this scroll was the complete chapter. If you have the time, you can study it seriously. I believe it will be of great help. So that's how it is. Chu Hen immediately understood what the other party meant. He glanced at the other party from the corner of his eye and said, I say, Senior, there are so many treasures in the Fortune Emperor Palace, but you only gave me this Essence Sutra. If it weren't for me, I'm afraid you wouldn't be able to get out in this lifetime. No matter what, those things should be split 50-50, right? Scram! The old Monkey glared at Huang Xiaolong and scolded hatefully. It would have been fine if you didn't mention it, but now that you mention it, I'm really unhappy. The best things are already in your hands, and you still have the face to ask me for help? It's because you helped me open the Fortune Emperor Palace's gates that I gave you the Essence Sutra. Don't be too greedy. Really? Chu Hen rubbed his nose. Don't play dumb. Don't you know how much you've taken advantage of me? It's just the Essence Sutra. If you don't want it, return it to me. The old Monkey reached out to snatch the scroll back. Since Chu Hen had obtained the scroll, he naturally wouldn't return it. With a wave of his hand, he put the scroll into his storage ring. Chu Hen couldn't deny the old Monkey's words. But with so many inheritance treasures in the Fortune Emperor Palace, he wouldn't be satisfied if he didn't get a few. However, right at this time, the old Monkey suddenly looked behind Chu Hen and shouted, Fortune Emperor, why are you alive again? Chu Hen was startled and subconsciously turned around to look. But wherever he looked, there was nothing. There wasn't even a shadow to be seen, let alone great monarch Zhao Hua. Chu Hen immediately understood that he had been tricked. When he turned around, the old Monkey had already turned into a streak of light and disappeared into the distance. Ha 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 ha! Young man, I still have matters to attend to, so I'll take my leave first. Goodbye. Chu Hen was amused and speechless at the same time. This old Monkey's name really wasn't called for nothing. There really wasn't anyone who could take advantage of him. Then, Chu Hen called out loudly, Senior Old Monkey, where can I find you in the future? We will meet again if fate allows it. Also, my name is Han Yu. See you again. The high-pitched voice slowly disappeared into the distance. Han Yu. Chu Hen muttered these 2 words. See you again, Senior Han Yu. He had to admit that the people and things he met on this trip were beyond Chu Hen's wildest dreams. The Holy War was coming to an end. This also meant that the Wind Cloud List War was about to erupt. In Chu Hen's mind, the arrogant figure that had thrown him into Di Yan's pure adversity river unconsciously appeared. A cold light that was as sharp as a frost blade quietly flashed in his eyes. In the depths of his pupils, there seemed to be a purple light floating. Under the bewitching light, 7 black dots slowly chased each other, and a sharp wind whistled in the air. The Holy War was about to begin, and the winds and clouds were about to change. Chapter 1409. Junior Sister Xiaqing, we have searched everywhere, but there is no trace of Chu Hen. At the entrance of the Fortune Emperor's tomb, Yi Yao's face turned even uglier when she saw Spirit Phoenix Valley's Su Li and the rest returning to report. Xiaqing's face was also filled with worry. She frowned and asked again, "Have you searched everywhere?" Su Li nodded solemnly. "I've searched all the secret realms that can be entered." Su Li swept a glance at the Spirit Phoenix Valley disciples behind him. When they entered the Fortune Monarch's tomb, Xiaqing had repeatedly emphasized that prejudice was one thing, but finding a person was a task assigned to them by Xiaqing, so they must not slack off. Perhaps the Spirit Phoenix Valley disciples were not willing to do this, but Su Li's words still held some weight. Even if they were not careful during the search, they had definitely searched everywhere. If he is not inside, then where could he have gone? Yi Yao bit her lower lip and was extremely anxious. Su Li's gaze paused for a moment and said, "If we really want to talk about it, there's indeed a place that we have not been to where?" Xiaqing quickly asked. A glimmer of light lit up in Yi Yao's eyes. Su Li heaved a sigh of relief and looked at the two of them with a more serious expression. He then spat out a few words. "Fortune Inner Palace. Fortune Inner Palace?" Everyone's heart skipped a beat. Very quickly, the Spirit Phoenix Valley disciples shook their heads in denial. "Impossible. There is no way to enter the Fortune Inner Palace." "That's right. Even if we found the entrance, there is no way to open the door to the Inner Palace." In comparison, everyone was more willing to believe that Chu Hen had left the Fortune Emperor Palace. In fact, in the eyes of the Spirit Phoenix Valley's disciples, the possibility of Chu Hen's death was higher than him being in the Fortune Emperor Palace's Inner Palace. "Where is the Fortune Inner Palace?" Yi Yao asked unwillingly. However, Su Li shook his head. "I'm sorry, I do not know the exact location of the Fortune Inner Palace." Immediately, Yi Yao looked at Xiaqing. Without waiting for Xiaqing to reply, one of the more experienced disciples from the Spirit Phoenix Valley spoke. "Junior sister Xiaqing, the sacred battle platform has already opened. We've already wasted quite a bit of time here." "Yeah, there's really no need to continue wasting time." The others also chimed in. The group of people standing at the back whispered in disdain. "What a joke. Wasting everyone's time for an outsider. In my opinion, that person has most likely slipped away. I've heard that all 4 of the War God Palace's Saint Kings have appeared in the Fortune Emperor Palace. That fellow killed War God Chen Lu earlier, so how would he have the guts to stay here?" "Makes sense. Of course, we can't rule out the possibility that he's already dead. It could be seen that the majority of the Spirit Phoenix Valley disciples held a deep grudge against Chu Hen. None of them thought well of him. Of course, these words could only be whispered secretly in the back. Because of Xiaqing, there was no loud noise. Similarly, they would look for Chu Hen once, but they would definitely not look for him a second time. "Senior brother Su Li, you guys head to the sacred battle platform first. I'll catch up later." Xiaqing spoke. "This..." Su Li frowned, feeling that something was amiss. He then looked to Huang Fu Hao. The latter naturally understood Su Li's meaning. He nodded slightly and said to Xiaqing, "Sister, the sacred battle platform is already open for 3 days. All the sects that participated in the holy battle have already gathered there. Who knows? Maybe Chu Hen went there himself." Yi Yao could also see Xiaqing's difficulties. She immediately said, "Sister Xiaqing, you guys head to the sacred battle platform first. We can't rule out the possibility that big brother Chu Hen has already gone there. Noni and I will go inside to look for him. If we still can't find him, we will meet up with you at the sacred battle platform." After saying that, Yi Yao did not wait for Xiaqing's reply. She waved her hand towards the yin-yang beast. "Noni, let's go, woo." Noni responded. 1 human and 1 beast moved, turning into a blur as they soared through the air, wanting to jump towards the deep abyss below. But the moment Yi Yao left the ground, a light wave of air whistled over. Yi Yao had not even rushed 5 meters away when she felt her left arm being pressed down by a steady and powerful palm. "Hua!" Yi Yao's heart jumped. Before she could react, she had already returned to her original position. "Where are you going? Aren't I back now?" A familiar voice rang in her ears. Yi Yao's eyes lit up. Big brother Chu Hen. Xiaqing's beautiful eyes also lit up. Huang Fu Hao. Su Li, and the others all had looks of astonishment on their faces. Where did this person come from? He was so fast that they could not even sense his aura. Big brother Chu Hen, where did you go? I was so worried. Yi Yao's little face was taut, and she was almost on the verge of tears. I'm sorry. Chu Hen lightly patted the back of the other party's hand. Immediately after, he looked at Xia Qing, who had a faint smile in her eyes. I've caused you trouble. Something happened to me inside, and I've wasted quite a bit of time. Xia Qing shook her head. It's all right. Following that, Chu Hen cupped his fist towards the people of Spirit Phoenix Valley and said, I'm sorry, everyone. The indifferent and deep voice carried a kind of indescribable lightness. And, unknowingly, in the eyes of the people of Spirit Phoenix Valley, Chu Hen's body had a unique aura. This aura was different from the previous one. His calmness revealed awe and majesty. It gave people an illusion of respect. It's all right, Su Li replied. Big brother Chu Hen, where have you been for such a long time? I've almost turned the place upside down, but I couldn't find you. Yi Yao had an aggrieved look on her face. Chu Hen smiled apologetically. I can't explain it clearly in such a short time. Let's go to the sacred battle platform first. Why don't you not go? Xia Qing's red lips parted slightly as she spoke with a serious expression. Oh. Chu Hen raised his eyebrows slightly. At the same time, the group of Spirit Phoenix Valley disciples, not far away, also revealed looks of disdain. Immediately, Chu Hen understood Xia Qing's meaning. The sacred battle platform opened. It was about to usher in the final battle. All the forces participating in the sacred battle would gather together. This naturally included the War God Palace. Looking at Xia Qing's worried look, Chu Hen only smiled. It's all right, let's go and join in the fun. But I have something to bring back. What thing? Xia Qing expressed her confusion. Chu Hen still only smiled and didn't explain anything. At the same time, his calm and indifferent eyes quietly changed. A cold glint flashed across his eyes. He raised his head and looked at the sky. Dazzling light scattered across the 9 heavens. In the beautiful and dazzling sky, the dragon and python confronted each other. The sacred battle had begun and the wind and clouds changed. War God Palace. I, Chu Hen, am coming. Rumble. 3,000 lightning strikes, wind and clouds like tides. The peaks were like the pillars of the heavens, and the mountains were undulating like giant beasts. The numerous peaks were like stars that had fallen into the mortal world. And at the peak of these peaks, there was a magnificent sacred battle platform that was like a myriad of stars surrounding the moon. The sacred battle platform stood on top of the mountains and was comparable to the high firmament platform. One after another, the high firmament platform was arranged in a rather orderly manner, surpassing the dojo of the God of Heaven. If one were to look down from the sky, they would see the 2 words wind and clouds engraved on each high firmament platform. And behind the 2 words, there were also numbers engraved. In the center of the sacred battle platform stood the most magnificent and majestic sacred battle platform. That sacred battle platform was 1,000 zhang wide, and on the east and west sides, there were giant pillars that were 100 zhang tall. One of the pillars had a giant dragon circling around it, while the other had a golden python coiling around it. The 2 ancient statues faced off against each other, their sharp claws wide open and their fangs facing each other. They were malevolent and exuded a majestic aura. And on the center of the sacred battle platform, there was an impressively engraved number 1. Wang. A heroic aura soared into the sky. At this moment, the sacred battle platform was already filled with the aura of tens of thousands of people. With a single glance, it was as if stars had gathered in the sky from all directions. Many outstanding and talented demon-level geniuses were displaying their splendor. The sacred battle platform. I've finally arrived here. Someone sighed. I'm just 1 step away. I must definitely ascend to the wind cloud rankings. The wind cloud rankings, this is my life's wish. Who isn't? The dragons and pythons clashed, and the wind and clouds gathered. Tens of thousands of young geniuses stared at the sacred battle platform that symbolized strength with burning gazes. At the same time, one after another, Imposing and domineering figures rushed out from the crowd and led the crowd onto the soaring sky platform with a might that could pierce through the galaxy. Firmament Equal Pavilion, Profound Sun Palace, Galaxy City, Huanyu Palace, Enlightenment Sect. They're all here, under the admiring gazes of the crowd. Many first-rate forces and geniuses on the Wind Cloud rankings had already gathered here. Firmament Equal Pavilions Yangsu, Profound Sun Palaces Heian, Huanyu Palaces Qingyan, and a few other geniuses had already made a name for themselves a long time ago. Their arrival caused a commotion one after another. The Hanyun Sex team is here. At this moment, there was a commotion from the southeast. Yangsu, Heian, and the rest also swept their cold gazes over. The leader of the Hanyun Sex team is Izhou, who's also known as Lunatic, right? That's right. Rumor has it that Izhou's shadow-flowing technique has reached the acme of perfection. If I were to choose someone to challenge the Wind Cloud rankings, I definitely wouldn't choose him. Haha, the rumor is a little exaggerated. It seems like Izhou doesn't have any impressive battle record. Even Yangsu and Heian are much more ruthless than Izhou. Following that, a relatively large commotion followed. Jitao, it's Jitao. He's definitely a ruthless person. The crowd quickly opened up a path. A burly figure in a long robe walked up slowly like a swordsman on a rainy night. He was ranked 13th on the Wind Cloud rankings. His appearance was like the edge of a blade, forcing people to retreat. Under the puzzled gaze of the crowd, Jitao walked in the direction of the Han Yun Sex team. Which rank on the rankings do you want to challenge? Jitao asked nonchalantly when he arrived before Izhou. What was going on? The surrounding people were all startled. Even the Han Yun Sex disciples looked at each other. However, Izhou merely shrugged. I like watching people fight. You can't avoid it. It's inevitable that we'll fight. Jitao said. How troublesome. Izhou sighed with a helpless look on his face. The crowd burst into an uproar. What's going on? Is Jitao challenging Izhou? If I remember correctly, their rankings on the rankings are more than 10 ranks apart, right? That seems to be the case. To a certain extent, it was an honor to be challenged by the 13th rank on the rankings. Profound Yang Palaces Heian and heaven-condensing Pavilions Yang Su couldn't help but exchange glances. Both of their brows revealed traces of coldness. The sacred battle platform was bustling with noise. With the passage of time, more and more powerhouses on the list appeared one after another. Du Qin is here. Li Su is over there. Wait, isn't that Deng Chai? Why did he lose an arm? I heard that was chopped off by Jitao. That day, Deng Chai was careless and almost lost his life due to the backlash of Ji Yanjing's misfortune Qi. I see. In that case, wouldn't Deng Chai's strength be greatly reduced? Looking at Deng Chai, who had lost an arm, the crowd who were eyeing the rankings couldn't help but narrow their eyes. It had to be said that this was definitely a good opportunity to replace him. There seems to be a lot of people missing. Lu Minghong from the Profound Sun Palace and Qin Shui from the Qixiao Pavilion. None of them appeared. I was thinking of challenging them and being satisfied with a spot on the rankings. Then you don't have to challenge them. The two you mentioned are long dead. What? What's so strange about that? Do you know the Lingyun sect? They were all slaughtered. Yuan Yi, Qi Si, and Li Xiong, 3 rankers on the rankings, were all killed. Oh my God, when did this happen? I came out of seclusion today and didn't know. It happened a long time ago. Many rankers will never appear again. Dragons and pythons fought. No one knew whether the giant dragon would suppress the python's head or the golden python would tear the dragon's scales apart. The sacred battle called for a sudden change. Some people would be buried with this land forever. Howl. At this moment, a loud wolf howl resounded through the sky. Everyone's heartstrings trembled in response. In an instant, the illusion of a giant blood-colored wolf appeared in the sky above the sacred battle platforms. What's that? Looking at the gigantic demonic wolf, everyone's pupils shrank slightly. Li Su, Deng Chai, Yang Su, Heian, Qing Yin, and the other ranker list masters were all shocked. Wow, such a fierce one. Scary. Izhou clicked his tongue. Even Jitao, who was not far away, squinted his eyes, his expression changing. Buzz! An invisible, majestic pressure shrouded down, and the blood-red giant wolf caused the world to sink into darkness. In the next instant, a dazzling beam of light pierced through the sky and hit the three engraved on the sacred battle platform. Buzz! A heavy sound rang out, and a powerful wave of chi spread out in all directions on the stage. Following that, a figure emitting a monstrous aura appeared on the platform. That person was tall and burly, almost 2 meters tall. He had brown hair, green pupils, and red lines on both sides of his cheeks. He looked like a human, but he had the evil aura of a beast. Hiss! Many people in the audience sucked in a breath of cold air. What a terrifying aura. Brown hair and green pupils. Could this person be from the New Moon's sacred clan? That's right, it's him. With the bloodline of the New Moon's sacred body and the beast power of the Blood Demon Wolf clan, ranked 3rd on the ranking. Lai Sheng Yuan. Chapter 14:10. Brown hair and green eyes. Could this person be? New Moon's sacred body bloodline limit and the Blood Demon Wolf clan's beast power. He's ranked 3rd on the ranking list. Lai Sheng Yuan. An incredibly majestic aura swept across the entire area. Looking at the burly figure that was more than 2 meters tall, everyone felt an extremely powerful aura permeate the air. Especially the ancient blood wolf shadow that overlooked the mountains and rivers and looked down on everyone. It made everyone's heart tremble. Lai Sheng Yuan. There was no doubt that he was a ruthless character. Everyone knew that Lai Sheng Yuan's father was one of the higher-ups of the New Moon Holy Clan, and her mother was a holy beast, the Blood Demon Wolf King. Although this kind of union was not accepted by most people, and Lai Sheng Yuan was even seen as a disgrace by the New Moon Holy Clan in the beginning. Later on, Lai Sheng Yuan's half-human, half-demon bloodline power exploded to a shocking level. Xing. Like an icy cold sharp weapon, it had the proud and evil charm of the sacred beast race and the bloodline of the sacred beast race. Li Sheng Yuan's green eyes and slanted eyebrows exuded a strange and wild aura. Why don't you go fight him? Hanyan Sex Izhou rubbed his chin and spoke to Ji Tao, who was not far away, with a playful tone. Ji Tao's fighting spirit was fleeting. He narrowed his eyes and shook his head. I might die. Izhou smiled and didn't comment on this. If he fought against Lai Sheng Yuan, he might die. He would definitely die. Kaboom! Just as everyone was shocked by Lai Sheng Yuan's powerful demonic aura, there was a shocking sound of thunder in the sky. Clang! Then 3,000 bolts of lightning interweaved into a net, like countless magnificent lightning pythons shuttling down. The sky was torn apart and the earth changed color. Everyone's eyes flashed with a sharp silver light. This is such a powerful lightning power, it should be him. The Thunder's sacred clan is here. Rumble. At the same time, on the other side of the sky, flames were also soaring. 5 different colors of clouds and rays of light pierced through the sky. The brilliant light patterns covered the sky like a heavenly net, and a strange illusion blocked the sun. 5 types of source powers. It's the 5 Elements clan. Wah! Under the horrified gazes of the crowd, the billowing momentum surged forward. Together with the resplendent light that descended from the sky, 2 powerful teams with imposing appearances appeared in the central region of the sacred battle platform at almost the same time. The Thunder clan shone with silver light, like a divine halberd piercing through heaven and earth. The 5 Elements race was magnificent and magnificent, like a rainbow that flickered in all directions after the rain. The appearance of the 2 sacred races caused waves of emotions to surge in the hearts of the spectators, causing the sacred battle platform to tremble violently. In comparison, profound Yang Palace, even Heaven Pavilion, Huanyu Hall, and other sects were obviously overshadowed. As expected of a famous sacred clan, their team's aura is too strong. Indeed, while the crowd was still in awe, their gazes focused on the leaders of the 2 sacred clans. The Thunder Clan leader's eyes were like an eagle's, especially sharp. From time to time, faint arcs of light would pass around him. It gave people the feeling that its entire body carried a fatal and dangerous power of thunder and lightning. Lei Jun ranked 6th on the wind cloud list. Someone exclaimed. On the Five Elements race's side, the leader also had an arrogant demeanor, his demeanor outstanding, not at all inferior to the domineering aura that Lei Jun exuded. Lin Yinghe ranked 7th on the wind cloud list. After Lai Xingyuan, two more powerful existences that ranked in the top 10 of the wind cloud list appeared one after another. The hearts of everyone present were moved. The atmosphere on the sacred battle platform also grew more and more intense. Lei Jun, Lin Yinghe, the two great geniuses stared at each other from afar, the sound of heavy waves overlapping in the air. Lai Xingyuan? At the same time, the Five Elements race and the Thunder Clan also noticed the demonic figure that stood alone on the third sacred battle platform. However, even though Lai Xingyuan was ranked 3rd on the wind cloud list, Lei Jun and Lin Yinghe did not seem to give him too much respect. The reason was clear to everyone. Someone with the bloodline of the sacred clan has been contaminated, someone from the Thunder Clan mocked. Letting such a person rank 3rd on the wind cloud list is really a loss of face. Senior Lei Jun, why don't you replace him today? I think that's fine. Lei Jun only smiled in response to the suggestions of the people behind him. There was a hint of confidence in his proud expression. The Five Elements race only glanced at Lai Xingyuan calmly. Compared to the Five Elements race and the Thunder race, the New Moon race, which was also a sacred race, had a weaker foundation. They had a stronger background, so the two sacred clans were not particularly afraid of Lai Xingyuan. The motley crew from the martial sect hasn't arrived yet. Among the Five Elements race, Yang Zhongxiao, ranked 41st on the wind cloud list, slowly swept his gaze across the sacred battle platform. Martial sect? The team led by Qiu Xingyi? Someone beside him asked. The Five Elements race was not unfamiliar with the name Qiu Xingyi. This was because Qiu Xingyi had left the Five Elements race a few years ago and only went to the martial sect later on. That's right, Yang Zhongxiao even met with Qiu Xingyi some time ago. Oh, who won? It doesn't matter who won. In the end, Yang Zhongxiao fled. Ha ha, really? Senior Yang, no wonder you've been looking for the people from the martial sect. Do you want revenge? Shut up. Yang Zhongxiao's face turned ashen at the ridicule of the people around him. He had been brooding over what had happened on the Wind Slasher platform. Now that the final battle of the Holy War had arrived, it was only natural that he wanted to regain the face that he had lost in the past. In Yang Zhongxiao's mind, the figure of a young man covered in purple lightning floated. He clenched his teeth, clenched his fists, and said, "Brat, don't come if you dare. Otherwise, I'll make you pay." Wah! Another wave of clamor could be heard. Everyone's gazes turned to look. As the crowd parted, a team exuding a cold and noble aura slowly ascended the sacred battle platform on the east side. Looking from afar, one could see that the man walking at the front had a calmness that surpassed his peers. There was no arrogance on him at all, only maturity and calmness. Even the way he appeared was more low-key than the others. Situ Hanya, the young lord of Wind Frost City, has finally arrived. So he's Situ Hanya. He's as calm as an emotionless lion, as the rumors say. He looks quiet, but he's actually very dangerous. Yes, Situ Hanya is one of the people I admire the most on the honor list. One had to admit that everyone's evaluation of Situ Hanya was very high. Other than Lai Xingyuan, who stood in the distance expressionlessly, even Lin Yinghe of the Five Elements clan and Lei Jun of the Thunder clan looked at Situ Hanya in surprise. Everyone knew that the forces of Wind Frost City were not among the top. At least, there was a clear gap between them and the many sacred clans. However, such a mediocre force had produced Situ Hanya, who was ranked 10th on the honor list. Is this guy really the same age as us? Izhou asked in a meaningful tone. Ji Tao, who was not far away, also shook his head in thought. He's indeed an unfathomable person. Under the unusual gazes of the crowd, Situ Hanya led the people of Wind Frost City onto the number 10 sacred battle platform. His gaze swept over the Five Element race and the Thunder race, and when his eyes met with Liningha and Lei Jun's, he nodded slightly as a simple signal. His calm and gentle expression did not seem to be overbearing at all. However, under this calm appearance, there might be a terrifying ambition that people could not imagine. That's strange. I wonder if you've noticed a problem? What problem? The second young lord of Wind Frost City, Situ Xiao, and Thunder Saint Clan's Lei Yuan are not here. Lei Yuan was a genius ranked 37th on the honor list, and Situ Xiao was one of the few sacred level pattern masters on the list. The two of them were also existences that could not be ignored. Seems like it. Situya is behind Situ Hanya. I don't see Situ Xiao. Lei Yuan is also absent. No need to look. The two of them will never come. What do you mean? What else can I mean? According to the information I've gathered, Lei Yuan died in the non-phase sky tomb, and Situ Xiao died in the Ice Emperor City. Really? Absolutely. The sacred war this time actually killed so many warriors on the honor list. Yeah, it's really an eventful time. Then who killed them? Buzz? While the discussions outside were still going on, a spatial fluctuation that caused the wind and clouds to change immediately interrupted the thoughts of everyone present. In the sky of the nine heavens, the nebula spun. Along with the sudden change of color, an unprecedented pressure immediately shrouded the area. This aura, the aura that was even more shocking than Lai, Shengyuan, Liningha, Lei Jun, and the others, was like a tsunami that was about to crash down, like the light of the end of the world collapsing. A startling pillar of light that spanned 100 meters suddenly pierced through the clouds, landing on the sacred battle platform at the very center of the sky tower platforms. The appearance of this scene caused everyone's eyes to tremble and their hearts to beat faster. On the sacred war platform in the center, it was more than 3,000 meters wide. On the east and west sides stood 300-meter-tall pillars that supported the sky. On one pillar, dragons intertwined. On the other pillar, golden pythons coiled. Everyone was extremely clear on what the sacred battle platform signified. They directly stepped onto the number 1 sacred war platform. Could it be the War God Palace? Hua! A vast and powerful wave of air directly swept out from the center of the sacred war platform. The fierce and forceful impact was like a hurricane. There were people from all the sects who could not stand steadily. A resplendent ray of light flashed past, and on the first sacred battle platform, for young men with extraordinary auras appeared. Hua! The moment they appeared, they were like the stars in the night sky, dazzling. Everyone's eyes overflowed with deep fear and awe. The four were 3 men and 1 woman. The one in the lead was extraordinarily handsome and had fair skin. Even the beautiful woman beside him felt ashamed of her inferiority. It's them. The atmosphere below the platform was stirred to an unprecedented level. Lininghe, Lei Jun, Ji Tao, and even Lai Xingyuan all had solemn expressions. Emperor Izhou's eyes narrowed and his hands clenched into fists. Hong Sitohanya also clenched his 5 fingers and murmured in a low voice. Palace, the great Emperor Palace. Reverence and awe. It covered everyone's face. A colossus. Absolutely a colossus. They stepped onto the sacred war platform without any objection. However, before everyone could recover from their shock, the extremely chaotic space in the surroundings was once more filled with endless gales and clouds, and it shook without end. Rumble. The billowing storm covered the sky and the earth. In the stirring nebula vortex, a luxurious brilliance like the Tian Pan suddenly appeared. Then a mountain-like pressure swept down. In the dazzling brilliance, one powerful figure after another slowly emerged. The great Emperor Palace. You're standing in my position. The momentum of indifference was like a king. The endless domineering aura crushed the audience. Everyone's expression changed again and again, and their hearts trembled. Finally, the War God Palace.